Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Okay, looks like it's working. Test, test. Ah. Okay, just getting set up here. I should start the stream in a couple of seconds. My little reactive image is acting up a little bit, so I might adjust my microphone just a tiny bit. Let's bring this down. Test, 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 test. And this as well. Test, 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 test. It's a little flickery, but hopefully that remains stable. I'll just talk a little bit louder today. Yeah, okay, that seems to be working. Okay, gonna get started in just a second here. Your chat's online. Yep, awesome. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Hope you've all been doing well. Had a good week, fun weekend, and all that. Appreciate everybody stopping by for the discussion on last weekend's stream. That was really awesome. Getting a chance to chat with everybody in Discord. Glad that everything seems to be working well in that regard. Today, we're going to be taking a slightly different approach from usual. Whereas in a lot of the previous streams, I have had a specific thing that I was looking to debunk, and I kind of came prepared with, like, or not even debunk, but just had a pretty clear perspective, I think is a better way of putting it, on whatever it was I was talking about. This time, I kind of do, but it's a little bit more vague. So the topic of today's stream is going to be talking a bit about KCM Naruto's durability in specific. This is, of course, relevant to the Kakuzu versus Pain discussions that we've been having over the past few weeks. But specifically, I think it was Kakuzu and Holidays pointed out when I was talking about my scaling of Choza to Pain and all that, that potentially, as long as we can demonstrate that Kakuzu was capable of damaging KCM Naruto, even to the point where Naruto was provoking a pain response of some kind, or Yugito was capable of doing that, and Yugito was not doing that same thing against Kakuzu, then we would have some kind of scaling of Kakuzu's durability over KCM Naruto's durability. And then we could further explore how durable KCM Naruto is and use that to kind of reinforce our position about Kakuzu. Hopefully I'm doing an okay job, Kakuzu and Holidays, of kind of recapitulating what you were saying, not trying to put words in your mouth, but I believe that was what we were talking about. And so over the past couple of weeks, I've been trying to think about durability in the series in general, and KCM Naruto's durability in specific. One second. So what I want to try to do today is start off not saying, like, okay, I have this all figured out necessarily, and I'm going to try to convince you one way or another, but instead just go through and look at several examples of KCM Naruto taking attacks and trying to evaluate how well or not well he handles those attacks. Just look at the data without necessarily applying it to one perspective or another. And then at the end of all of that, hopefully we can gather it all together, try to put like a hypothesis together, and then apply that back to Kakuzu versus Pain, Naruto versus Kakuzu, Yugito, whatever else, right? So, hey, Mr. Narrative, hey, how's it going? How's your week been? How's your weekend? Thank you again for jumping in on the discussion previously. It was great to kind of have that back and forth. Sorry in advance about the coughing. I don't know why this is still ongoing, but yeah, it's been great. How are things on your end? Just kind of getting settled in here. We're going to do some discussion about durability, specifically KCM Naruto's durability. But durability in Naruto, as far as I've found, and like we've mentioned before, is a little bit, I wouldn't say inconsistent, per se, but it's something that has a bit of nuance to it that's a little bit difficult to untangle. And this is something, actually, credit where credit is due, that Noodles himself brought up in one of his videos, that we can start off by taking a look at this because it is sort of tangentially related. One second. Which is that Minato gets harmed by like a wooden splinter. Maybe you're already familiar with this. I think it's in the backstory here. Mr. Narrator says, I've been great. I saw solo leveling last night. Wow, that sounds familiar. Is that the manga where they're like down in the dungeon and kind of like grinding creatures? It's like based on a based on kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons setup. What'd you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Yeah, here's the thing I was talking about, by the way. Yeah, I feel like I've heard people talking about that. Let me know what you think. I recently saw, my partner and I watched Delicious in Dungeon a few months ago, and that was genuinely, surprisingly, really good. Kind of charming, kind of endearing. But I like those shows that, like Madoka, that have a relatively innocent like exterior, and then all of a sudden it just hits you with these really dark moments or like shocking moments. So I would recommend that one as well. Also, the cooking sequences, as somebody who's like, I'm not very good at cooking, but I really enjoy cooking. So seeing the way that Senshi, or whatever his name is, came up with creative ways to use monsters and dishes was really endearing in and of itself. Yeah, it was great. Rated PF. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. Rated PF. Is it? Can you elaborate on what that definition is, please? Mr. Narrator says you should watch it. Okay, sure, yeah. I'd be happy to check it out. Thank you. I was actually just, I wrapped up watching The Boys recently, and I'm kind of in the market for a new show. So I was checking out the adaptation of Ranma One Half, which peak fiction. Peak fiction. Sorry, I should totally know that. Okay, if it's peak fiction, then I gotta check it out. Okay. Yeah, I read Ranma One Half like a long time ago, like the manga, and I was interested to see how they would kind of bring it back to life, because it's, it's relatively old at this point. And surprisingly, the Netflix adaptation has been pretty good so far. Also, I tried out Dandadan, and first of all, amazing fucking opening track. It's the Creepy Nuts is the band or the duo that does the music for the opening. They also did it for Mashal, and man, their tracks are always fucking amazing. It felt a little bit exploitative with the female character. I was a little turned off by that. But overall, like, the show's energy and vibe and colors and just like chaos was really cool. I enjoyed that too. I think if there's anything else I've seen recently. No, I don't think so. But yeah, let me know. Have you been checking out any other media that you would recommend? I'm always in the market for, or like, that sounds like a really weird way to phrase it, but I'm always eager to hear people's recommendations. Somebody was talking about Omori on stream the other day, which is a great game, although it's very niche. But was it you that I was talking about Omori with? Either way, it's really great to hear people's thoughts and recommendations. Anyway. So, this is something that I think is a little bit difficult to reconcile, perhaps. At least for me, it definitely causes me to raise an eyebrow. Where Minato is a Hokage, so, like, by definition, I mean, you can contest this, but by some definition, he should be the strongest in the village. And I think the assumption that we all make, or maybe not all of us, but the assumption that is convenient, that I think intuitively makes sense, is that the more chakra you have flowing through your body, the more durable you are. It just makes sense that, Kakashi, when he gets kicked into a tree by Kakuzu, that doesn't break his spine or anything like that. And his skin is stronger than the tree behind him. Unless he has some superhuman anatomy, which is never really elaborated on, we're never really told that, then it makes sense that something else is reinforcing him and making him strong enough to withstand that blow. So, like, why wouldn't it be chakra, right? Especially when we know that characters like Choji can gather chakra in their hands and have that, chakra. Choji is able to, like, take the red soldier pill, gather chakra in his hand, and then ward off Jirobo's punch, like, no difficulty whatsoever. Whereas before he was getting kicked around by him and injured by his attacks and stuff like that. So it does seem to be, we can go through the whole series and look for examples like this. But it does seem to be the case that gathering chakra in different parts of your body can provide a durability benefit to you. Kabuto as well, when he's going up against Naruto, the first time Naruto uses the Rasengan on somebody, he says that he's like gathering chakra in his stomach to try to ward off the attack, but it's not enough and it kind of overwhelms him. So it seems like there's some evidence that this is the case. But then we have something like Minato, who should have a shitload of chakra, who's, the strongest in the village, so he should have insane chakra levels as well. Gets blown up by a few paper bombs that don't make direct contact with his skin, and he still manages to take an injury and have it pierce his skin from, I guess, a shard of wood, like a wood splinter that comes out of this building. So I think, oh, sorry, Mr. Narrative says watch Invincible. Oh, yeah. I've seen some clips from that. It looks really good. It seems like it has a similar vibe to The Boys, which I really enjoyed. Of course, I've seen, like, the meme source of the the father character beating his son, saying, think, use your head or something like that. Is it J.K. Simmons that plays that character? Definitely looks like it'd be up my alley. Thank you for the recommendation. But all this is just to say that even Kage level characters, high tier characters, some of the strongest characters in the series, can potentially be wounded by just piercing and slashing attacks. And this kind of makes sense when you think about the fact that, Tobirama goes into battle against Madara with just a sword. Right? As far as we know, it's just a sword. Like, it's not some special steel that's been forged in the heart of a dying sun or something like that. Or it's not like the Kusanagi, as far as I know, where it's supposed to be able to pierce anything. It's just a sword. Itachi, one of the highest tier ninja in the verse, also carries around, like, just basic shuriken. Sometimes he has, I think I have it up here somewhere, like, sometimes he does more advanced shit, like the Hosenka or whatever it's called, where he is, like, throwing out flaming shuriken. But also, when he goes up against Sasuke, for example, both of them are just using, basic metal piercing weapons. Standard tools get used even in, like, high-level shinobi encounters. So we've kind of brushed on this before, but my take, subjectively, intuitively, can be challenged, of course. It's not like dogma. But my take thus far is that characters in this series, unless they have some sort of superhuman anatomy, like maybe Kisame does, or they have some sort of transformation, like the like Orochimaru's seal transformations, or Sage Mode, or Diamond Morph, or something like that, that their durability is still basically human durability. Their skin can be cut, they can bleed, they can have fractured bones, and everything like that. And then it's a matter of figuring out, okay, if characters can allocate chakra to different parts of their bodies, they can reinforce themselves temporarily. But, like, even the strongest character in the verse, I guess, like, who's somebody who has, like, insane durability, like the third Raikage, right? If you were to come up behind the third Raikage while he was asleep or something, or he was just stoned and just chilling, you poked him with a scalpel, I don't think the scalpel would just break and shatter. Like, God, I can never remember where this comes from, but I saw a scene, I think it was of Superman, and they're, like, trying to draw blood from Superman, and they keep trying to put needles in his arm, and they can't do it because the needles just keep crumpling and folding, and it's just impossible, right? As far as I'm aware, as far as, like, my reading of the series goes thus far, I'm not seeing evidence that characters, when they're just completely passive, unless they have superhuman anatomy, that they just resist any kind of damage like that. It has to either be some sort of, like I said, superhuman anatomy. It has to be some sort of utility, some sort of jutsu, or something like that. Now, they could be wrong. I think the way to really genuinely figure it out will involve going through the whole series, and it's something that I'm kind of working on as, like, a side project as I go through other things. Like, I'm trying to keep notes of durability feats and see if how I'm feeling about this stuff actually holds up. But in the meantime, I want to take a look at KCM Naruto, because first of all, it's relevant to our conversations about Kakuzu versus Pain, and then secondly, KCM Naruto's durability seems to increase over time as he gets better with using KCM. And he's also got, there's a couple of things that kind of come up, like whether or not he's actively guarding against attacks, that also seem to play a role. So if we look at all that, my hope is that maybe at the end of it, the other side, we come up with some clearer data on how all this shit works, and then we can try to take that back and use that data fairly in continuing to talk about Kakuzu versus Pain. Mr. Narrative says, well, those splinters were caused from an explosion by a paper bomb. Yep, which have been shown to damage Ninja. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you, I think you might have been here for the paper bomb discussion a month or so ago. No worries if not. Sometimes I can forget names and stuff, so I apologize if I wind up forgetting a detail like that. But I do have a video where we talked about a bunch of different paper bomb feats throughout the series, and my feeling was basically like kind of similar to that, right? Like Obito, one of the strongest characters in the series, and he gets wounded, significantly damaged by Konan's paper bombs. And then I think we looked at the sigils, like the seals on them, and found that they were very similar, if not the same, to even the basic paper bombs that were used by people earlier in the series. Tobirama and Hashirama, granted that they were Edo Tensei, but a single paper bomb from, what's his name, from Hiruzen managed to blow off one of their limbs apiece. And the fact that Kakuzu, despite his durability, is still, you know, using Diamond Morph to kind of protect himself, at least to my interpretation, against an incoming paper bomb, to me indicates that, yeah, paper bombs themselves don't have great DC. They don't have like amazing, they're not like Biju bombs that are leveling entire forests or mountains or anything like that. But if they're applied directly to someone's flesh, if they're attached to someone, then it's just like Semtex or something like that. Like all of the energy from that explosion is being channeled and focused directly on that person's limb or on their body, and it can absolutely cause damage to even high level characters. And if your argument is that the splinter is then being propelled even faster by the explosion, then yeah, it makes sense that it would also have the potential to pierce his flesh as well. Take a look at that. Yeah. So, and this is going to be relevant when we start talking about Naruto needing a splint for his leg after this feat here. Oh, Spectre, hey, yo, good to see you. How you doing? Have you had a good week? What have you been up to this weekend? Mr. Narrative and I were just talking about some anime that we had watched. I've been checking out a bunch of random things, a couple episodes at a time. I'm curious if you've been playing or watching anything recently that you've enjoyed. Spectre says, I'm alright, how about you? Yeah, I'm doing okay. I still have this persistent cough or cold or whatever the hell it is, so I'm sorry that I'm going to be coughing a little bit on stream. So that's a little frustrating, but overall, you know, everything is pretty stable. We're entering the like muddy season where all the snow and ice is starting to melt, and so everything's just a big swamp, which not my favorite, but my dog loves it. Loves going out and getting all muddy. And I've also been playing Helldivers, which I stayed away from for a while because I thought I was gonna maybe like get really into it and it was gonna be a huge time sink, but a friend of mine kind of convinced me to check it out, and it's really, really good. I'm trying to avoid spending too much time with it so I can keep working on other projects and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been fun. Spectre says, just worked 2 overnight shifts. Holy shit. So I've been sleeping all day pretty much. Yeah, that's rough. That's a lot, man. I hope you'll take the time to rest up and give yourself some, like, whatever time you need to recuperate. That's intense. I don't know if you want to say what it is, if you want to share that personal information or anything, but I did have a friend who worked as an EMT, so I'm curious if it's something like that. I remember she was like, she would do an 18-hour shift and then come home and then sleep for like 6 hours, maybe 8 hours if she got lucky. She'd have to get up and get breakfast and everything and then go right back at it. And you figure like, oh, okay, that's fine because she has the rest of the week off, right? And just recuperate. So no problem. You're lucky you only have to work 2 days a week. But those 2 days are like insanely intense. And then you spend so much time after that just trying to get your shit back together. It's brutal. So hopefully you're not, they're not pushing you too hard. Oh, you work fast food, Del Taco. Oh, that's got to be intense with everybody coming in. Do you have to deal with like shitty, grumpy customers? I used to work at 7-Eleven and like, yeah, that's a lot. I feel for you, man. Yeah, no, EMT workers are monsters. I could never do that. Yeah, same here. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. They are like real life superheroes and people who work in the ER and stuff like that. But fast food too. Like you get, hopefully it's better for you, but you can get so many like grumpy, like nasty people who just are so entitled and just like have no patience for your own like tiredness or fatigue. So, Going back up a little bit, Mr. Narrative says, "Thank God winter is over." Yeah, I do love the quietness of it, the calm that can come with like all the snow everywhere. But I mean, it's very like constricting in terms of how much you can do. Like ice all over the ground, it gets dangerous and all that shit. So, maybe I'm getting old, but yeah, I just prefer it when I can actually go outside more regularly. And then Spectre says, "What kind of dog you got?" Oh, I got like a black lab mix. She's super cute. She's a handful, like tons and tons and tons of energy. But super super fun to work with, or to train and play with. That's what I mean. The only anime you've ever watched is One Piece. Okay, cool. Yep. I've, that's one of the big three. It's one of the classics, right? So, definitely makes sense. I'd be curious to hear whether or not you think it compares favorably to Naruto. I know there's some contention amongst the community. Yeah, it's too cold, says Mr. Narrative. Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's a certain kind of level of cold where it just like, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but the muscles in my back tense up and like my spine fucking hurts. And as much as I kind of like the idea of cold, if I'm walking around and I'm just constantly uncomfortable, it's like, man, fuck this. I just want to go back to normalcy. Spectre says at night usually the customers are chill. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we don't get a lot because it's like past midnight. Oh, that's better then. You get people like coming in stoned or just looking for a late night meal. You have a golden lab. Oh, golden labs are amazing. That's wonderful. Spectre says, "I've watched Naruto. One Piece is just one of the ones I've watched recently." Okay, I think Naruto is the best of the big three and it's my favorite anime. Oh, awesome, cool. Yeah, it's I think it might be mine too. Dragon Ball is always gonna have a very special place in my heart because it was, I think, the first manga that I ever really read and got addicted to, and it was like, in a positive way. Like, I shouldn't say addicted, I should say like immersed in. And I would basically like save up my what little allowance I could get or whatever money I could get when I was little, and then I would just wait to go to this one place in the city that had the comics, go in and just grab them, and I would just like sit on the corner reading them all day, like for hours literally, until I had to go back home. Something about them was just so like fascinating, and coming back to them a few years later, now I can see, I love Naruto, and I think there's great character development, great artistry, great narrative arcs and character design and everything, but the fight choreography in Dragon Ball is just insanely good. And seeing the amount of emotion, the amount of weight, the amount of like kinetic energy that Akira Toriyama was able to convey on the page is just, it's like a masterclass, right? It's exceptionally good. It's cool. Like, the more I come back to it over the course of my life, the more I like gain respect for it. Spectre says, "Yeah, so many drunk and high people." Well, it's nice when they're mellowed out, not when they're like belligerent. But hopefully they're relatively easy to manage. Dragon Ball is the GOAT, says Mr. Narrative. Yeah, I mean, you can't. It's sort of like how Hayao Miyazaki with like Studio Ghibli is. You can't really talk about the history of anime without mentioning that studio and that director, right? It's just such an integral part of the medium, and I think the same goes for Dragon Ball, right? It's just like Toriyama is synonymous with manga and with anime in his own way. I mean, even the fact that, like, I'm not saying that this is a ripoff or even a riff necessarily, but you have to think the fact that like Naruto's super form, he winds up like having like a glowing, like fiery kind of aura when he powers up and gets angry, there's got to be some inspiration there, right? And then it like spills out to other things, like Supersonic is basically just a Super Saiyan. The influence is worldwide and like deep and wide, I guess. Spectre says, "I actually haven't watched Dragon Ball. Years ago I used to watch it on Cartoon Network if I stayed up late." Yeah. I used to where I lived, we didn't really have many TV channels. We only had like one or two, and one of them was like a news channel, but for whatever reason they would have like a couple of episodes. It would like switch to Cartoon Network. I don't even know how it worked, but basically from like 5 to 6 there would be a couple of episodes of Dragon Ball that would play, or maybe some other like cartoon show, and my mom hated it, and because she didn't like the fighting in it or whatever. So I would basically just turn it on. I would stand right there by the TV and I would be watching it, and then I would like listen to see if anybody was coming home, and then if if they were, I had to like turn it off real quick and then run and pretend like I was studying, which was maybe not the most honest thing for me to do as a kid. So I admit that was a little sketchy, but the first time I saw it, I was just like entranced by what was happening. It was during the, I still remember the first episode I saw. It was during the Namek saga, and it was when what's his name, Piccolo was fighting like Form 2 Frieza, the one that looks like the Xenomorph from Aliens, and Frieza was like using the attack. He was like pointing his fingers and like basically making wounds appear on Piccolo, and I was like, yep, this is my new thing. This is what I'm into now. So eventually managed to get some of the comics, and just yeah, it was great. You can't imagine a world without Dragon Ball. Yeah, absolutely. Can't imagine. You certainly can't imagine like the anime sphere without Dragon Ball, let alone the world in general. R.I.P. Yeah, that was devastating. Really, really sad. R.I.P. And I don't know if you follow Berserk, but actually, I might have to say that my favorite manga is probably Berserk, and Kentaro Miura, the director, like creator of it, I think passed away maybe 2 years ago, and it was really sad because I mean, some of this is anecdotal. I don't know how much of this is accurate, but what I've heard is that in addition to, I think, just being kind of fatigued from working on the very heavy subject matter, very, very detailed art for so many years, he eventually got to the point where he was also playing a lot of like gacha games and got kind of addicted to them. So he would like spend multiple months kind of holed up doing nothing but playing those games, and then kind of emerge and then make a couple chapters and then go on hiatus again. Could have been health reasons. It could have been just the community memeing on him for liking those games. But either way, he was so close. We were all so close to seeing the end of the saga that had been going on for like 10, 15 years or something like that. And then just suddenly he was just gone. And thankfully, I think his daughter or his apprentice, or maybe a combination of both, like some of his family and creative staff found his manuscripts and have been continuing the series, and it's still really good. It's coming to a conclusion in its own way, but at least for Toriyama, like, he got to see his magnum opus completed, and unfortunately Miura, that's just never going to happen. But he still built this legacy. You know, Dark Souls, for example, my favorite series, would not exist the way that it does without his works, like Miura's works. I actually kind of believe that the director of the Souls games, Hidetaka Miyazaki, has basically just been trying to make a Berserk adaptation for the past 20 years, and nobody's given him the rights, and so he tries to put as many Berserk references into all of his fucking games as possible, so that eventually he'll like prove himself. And then in the process of doing that, he managed to create some of the best, like, quote-unquote RPGs of all time, and so now he doesn't really need to, but every single game has some kind of Berserk reference in it. Artorias is probably the most clear example. So one thing I'm going to try to do better going forward with my streams is I'm going to put time codes. So I think we're going to start talking about some of these feats now. I'll try to leave the time codes as to when we start talking about certain subjects and all that. There's never going to be any, I don't think, specific schedule for the streams, so we can just like talk the whole time, or we can just focus on reaction the whole time. Like, whatever happens. Like, I'm totally down for whatever. But I will try to leave time codes, not pine cones, holy shit, time codes, in case people want to jump around to the arguments and stuff later. I should have been doing that already. I thought I had like auto generate chapters and topics on, but I guess that's not working. So I'll keep a better log of that. Anyway, so to talk about KCM Naruto's durability, let's just go through. I just want to look at a couple of examples, and I just want to make a note of a couple of things without necessarily drawing conclusions or saying, hey, this is what we have to think about this just yet. Really, literally just kind of going through and picking through the data and seeing where it leads us. So I'm going to start off here, chapter 505. This is when Naruto first gets KCM. So this is the very first time he's activated it, and the first thing that happens is that he senses he senses that Kisame is hiding in Samehada. So Kisame tries to leave. Kisame might not be at full strength here, but it does look like he's fused with Samehada. And Naruto, Kisame is no joke, and he's covered in spikes and all that. But Naruto dashes towards him and smashes him, and obviously like seems to damage him because he's like fucking bleeding from the mouth and all that. Naruto doesn't seem to indicate that his hand is in any sort of pain. So going up against his tough hide, like hopefully it's safe to assume that he avoided hitting any of these spikes directly. But still, like, this is Samehada, right? He's still covered in like those sharp scales. And Naruto punches it and doesn't get hurt in his hand. But then this happens. And this is honestly, like, the more I think about it, the weirder this gets. It's such a weird little moment where Naruto gets his leg stuck in this tiny bit of wall and says that he can't get up. He's fallen and he can't get up. And then this happens, which is even weirder in the next chapter, which is that Naruto is, you know, you could argue that all of this is just like a conceit to keep Naruto behind the waterfall, so that B has a chance to, or like Guy has a chance to fight Kisame one-on-one. And yeah, that's true, but it also doesn't deny the fact that this particular feat is actually happening. And what happens here is that Naruto says that he's sprained his ankle and he has to get a splint. Like, we see him get bandaged at other points in the fight, but does he ever get like a field dressing and a splint like this any other time? This is a significant injury that he gave himself from embedding his leg into like a tiny piece of wall. Now, I'm sure you remember, I could pull it up if you like. Let's see. You're actually just talking about this the other day, so it might make sense to look at this real quick. 1 second. So yeah, so maybe like 163. Let's do that real quick. This is going to be relevant in a second. Let's see. 163. Okay. This is back in part 1, where Tsunade is, you know, starting to go after Kabuto and Orochimaru. And this feat over here is something that I wind up referring to quite a bit, because if you're ever wondering about like whether or not the data books are accurate or faithful or whatnot, there's a databook statement in the second databook that says that this attack, which it calls the Heavenly Foot of Pain, is supposedly capable of vaporizing, or pulverizing rather, not vaporizing, pulverizing anything that it touches. So, and then I think I brought that up before, that would like mean that this attack has universal AP, which is obviously like really silly. But look at what Tsunade does here. She smashes the ground and it makes this big of an impact crater, and her foot is not stuck. And then compare that to Naruto's tiny little crater, where he winds up twisting his ankle and getting his foot stuck in the wall over here. 1 second, get back to it. It's obviously way, way smaller. So it doesn't really make sense that KCM Naruto, even when he's not in full control of his chakra, should be this limited in his power output, but also not able to pull his leg out of the wall. So I think the temptation here is just to say that this is a plot contrivance, and this is basically, again, just trying to find a way to demonstrate that Naruto can't control his chakra, and also that he's unable to, you know, yeah, basically he can't control his chakra with KCM mode, because he's not used to it yet. And also to create an incentive for him to stay behind when Guy is out fighting Kisame and give them their one-on-one. That's totally fine. But if we interpret this as part of the greater framework of the series, this means that even Naruto himself, like his own durability in this form, at least in this stage, is lower than his own AP. In other words, like he can hurt himself with his own abilities, and his durability isn't like really all that high if trying to get out of this amount of stone or brick or whatever, not brick, but like earth or whatever it is enough to make him twist his ankle. So that's where we're starting off from. Now, granted, this is the first thing he ever does, basically, with KCM mode. So this doesn't mean that his KCM where he fights Yugito is the same at all. I think he gets like way better, but it's just a really weird moment to start off this discussion with. Spectre says, if you're looking for KCM1 Neuro... Let me try that again. If you are looking for KCM1 Neuro... What is wrong with my brain today? KCM1 Naruto Dura Feat. Go to the Raikage fight. He has some Dura Feats there. Yep, that's going to come up right now, actually. So good call on that. I think there's one thing I want to mention here in 520, and then we're going to jump over to the Raikage feat next. I don't need Sora open. Oh. This is just one thing I wanted to mention real quick, is that Naruto's in KCM, and he's trying to work on his Biju Bomb. And his Biju Bomb explodes, and it, like, pushes him back, and he knocks himself out of KCM. Now, I don't necessarily think that means the damage that he's taking from that explosion is what's knocking him out of KCM. I think he just can't sustain it for very long, and he's focusing and generating a lot of chakra into this attack, or into this Biju Bomb, which he can't really control or use properly yet, which is why it blasts him back. However, the explosion of this partial incomplete Biju Bomb winds up hurting his hands, and you can see that he's in physical pain, and he has received like a visible injury to his hands. And the injury, even though we're seeing this now in his base form, the injury itself occurred, the explosion occurred when he was in KCM. So KCM's durability, at least at this stage, should be below a partial, like a not even completed Biju Bomb. Which is interesting to try to reconcile that with the fact that B gets damaged by his full Biju Bomb, you know, when he's fighting Obito, or when he's fighting the Ten Tails, and he gets it flicked back at himself. He does take damage from that, but he doesn't, you know, die, obviously. Gyuki just has to go back and recharge. But this tiny, small Biju Bomb that's not even fully formed yet, it's, you know, still in the process of being generated, and is much smaller than the ones that we see there, is still capable of burning Naruto, hurting his hands, and causing this kind of reaction. So at this state, at this phase, I think that further reinforces that his like basic durability isn't all that high. This is an important thing to note too, right? Interesting to note that when Spy Kage and Noodles had their extensive debate about Pain versus Itachi, the concept of jutsu recoil came up, and this is actually an explicit instance of a jutsu having recoil on Naruto and hurting his hands. And the argument was like, maybe he wouldn't use the Rasen Shuriken in close quarters because it would recoil and hurt him. And yet, here's a very clear example of Naruto. I forgot to mention this in my video as well. Like, here's a very clear example of Naruto using a jutsu that does actually physically hurt him quite a bit, and it explicitly is called recoil, and yet he immediately is like, screw it, I'm just gonna try it again, right? So this goes to show like his determination and his ability to continue fighting through the pain, so to speak. So as Spectre correctly pointed out, we should talk about the Raikage's durability, or the Raikage's attacks on Naruto, and Naruto's durability with respect to the Raikage. Keeping in mind that the Raikage was able to crack through, it was Hebi Sasuke's Susanoo, right? He wasn't, oh wait, no, it would have been Taka, right? Because he had the Mangekyo and he was with, Obito. So, he was able to crack through his, like, the ribs of his Susanoo a little bit, which is a pretty significant feat. I guess you could argue that Danzo was incapable of piercing Sasuke's Susanoo, and it broke his kunai, but of course, you know, that was a denser form of the Susanoo, so the scaling isn't really one-to-one there. But I also don't think it's weird to suggest that the Raikage's punches are harder than, you know, stabs or like attacks from basic steel weapons, especially since he's cloaked in fucking lightning chakra. And again, it's not a one-to-one comparison between the Raikage and what's his name, Kakashi, but we do know from Kakashi that lightning chakra can vastly enhance your your striking strength. He's also just his basic anatomy is he's super muscular, super fast. So he's got a lot of mass moving at a very high speed. So his punches should be hitting super hard. And Naruto himself even says, whoa, this punch is super solid, that could hurt somebody, which is kind of a silly reaction. But that being said, he takes this punch from a powered up Raikage directly in front of him. He's surprised that the Raikage, he's like moderately surprised as well, because he's not expecting the Raikage to be able to keep up with him. Smashes him, knocks him all the way back, and he's like skidding along the ground, and he doesn't seem to have taken any damage. He doesn't say ouch. He doesn't say like his arm doesn't need a splint. He doesn't have any fractures or bleeding or anything like that, right? So how do we reconcile this with what we've seen before? Well, it seems to me like the intention here is for us to just get the impression that Naruto is just getting better and better at using KCM. And so whatever happens here kind of should take precedence over whatever happened here in terms of like our assessment of the strength of KCM overall. Because here again, Naruto's skidding along the ground. He's able to prop himself up. He's able to avoid taking damage from that pushback, avoid taking damage from the strike. So here we're seeing a slightly more advanced, slightly more experienced Naruto wielding his chakra better, is my opinion. But also, there's one very important thing to note here. And I know this seems like a tiny detail, but I want to call out the fact that Naruto, when he gets hit, it's hard to see over here, but his hands are actually crossed in front of him, and we see that his hands are crossed in front of him here too. So this, we wind up coming back to this later. When Naruto gets hit on his chest, on his head, when he's not guarding, he seems to take more damage and experience more pain than when he's guarding with his arms like actually up in a blocking position, which makes sense, right? Like, even in real life, if you are in a boxing match with somebody and you get hit on your chest, that might potentially hurt you more, knock you back more, or like wind you. Whereas if you put your arms up and guard against the attack, like, guarding is a huge part of boxing for a reason. So I know it seems like it should be intuitive, but sometimes when we talk about characters' durability, we tend to refer to their durability overall, like the durability of their entire body, durability of their whole form, as one singular thing. But we shouldn't forget the fact that characters can be hit on different parts of their body. Their awareness, both the gathering of chakra and the positioning of their body, of their hands and all that stuff, can play a very big impact on how much damage they take. So you can reconcile this with stuff like Minato getting pierced in his shin, or Naruto himself getting a splint in his ankle before, by simply saying that, like, if characters don't protect against attacks, if they don't make a cognitive effort to do so, then it hurts them more. And I think that winds up kind of helping to like consolidate all these potentially like disparate aspects of durability in the series. Spectre says another good KCM1 Naruto durability feat is in the end of chapters 628 and 629. While in KCM1 he gets hit with a 10 Tails Cataclysm, which is stated to be over Kurama in the databooks. He survives the Cataclysm with little damage but pops out the cloak. Okay, cool, yeah, I hadn't actually come across that. I was going up until he gets KCM2 for the first time. Let's take a look at that. That's a really interesting one. So 629. Oh, other way. Thank you for pointing that out, by the way. Let's take a look. It should be noted that he was protecting his friends with his Kyuubi cloaks, and so he was probably focusing on protecting his friends. He could have stayed in KCM1 if he wasn't protecting his friends. Oh, that's a good point, yeah. So, like, his attention and his chakra was split. It's not loading for some reason. Okay, maybe it just... 629, not 639. Yeah, weird. Huh. I'll try to go back and see if that helps. Sometimes this site is a little bit particular. 35. Yep, exactly. Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't realize it switched to the color version. Oh well, that's okay. We usually do black and white. It's okay to do a color stream every once in a while. Okay, so here we are. Ooh, I actually love this in color. I've never seen the color version of this before. Kind of terrifying. It reminds me of something from Outer Wilds, which I will not spoil, but Outer Wilds is one of my favorite games, one of the best games of all time in my opinion. Weeb Central is good, it has problems, yep. Has some limitations, that's true. Okay, so... Okay, let me go back to the previous chapter and see, because I want to see the context that you were talking about too. Okay, so... Yeah, it looks like Naruto's in KCM 1 here, and he has his chakra distributed amongst the others, obviously, with those cloaks. And then Obito comes in, dashes away. Has to go in for the attack on him. He teleports away with Kamui. Okay, they have this sort of philosophical... this is such a great shot. Madara as well, so chilling. Shows that he like lives for the battle. But then... Yeah, there's the Kakuzu. Wow. This is so cool. The use of like light and shadow and color here is amazing. Like, you can really feel... It looks really good in the black and white version as well. But man, something about the color version, like this is just so... I don't know, it's like shocking. It's really, really well done. I'm working on a short video about another manga that I checked out recently, and one of the things I love about that manga as well is just how they use, you know, if you just bring up a bright white, if you just bring up like a blank white page in Word or something, the page itself is probably not going to look bright to you. But if you use darkness on the page and create a contrast with the light, it can actually make the page seem way brighter than it is, which I think he's done, or they've done very effectively here. This looks great. Yeah, the spreads are great. And for some reason, it really doesn't want to load chapter 629. I'm not sure why. Here we go. And I gotta go back on it. So yeah, this massive cataclysm, all these tornadoes and everything, big explosion as well, like the shockwave, fucking mushroom cloud. It's no joke. Madara even seems to defend himself with a Susanoo. Yep. And Naruto gets knocked out of KCM, and he's bloodied. His arm is fucked up a bit. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I definitely agree that this is a feat for him. It's also the case that trying to figure out... He actually looks really happy here. What the hell? This almost seems out of character. But it's also one of those things where, you know, all of the energy from the Ten Tails Cataclysm is getting like spread out and distributed over a bunch of different people who are also absorbing parts of the impact with Naruto's KCM cloak. But Naruto is also, you know, sharing some of his chakra with other people. So if he would gather all that chakra into himself, he'd probably be able to sustain even more of that damage. I think another thing to point out, this doesn't invalidate your point, but like, I think the Ten Tails was inside the, whatchamacallit, was like being compressed by the rock wall that the other shinobi had kind of placed around him, right? Like his movement was a bit constricted. I know he manages to break out first. Okay, so it's not like the rock is absorbing. No, he's like in this big open crater. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, that's definitely worth noting, for sure. Yeah, that's an insane sort of attack. I wonder if we were to get like a size calc and an energy calc for this, is it more energy being output than like the Ten Tails Biju Bomb, or is it more that like all the tornadoes and like the quote unquote natural disasters that are being generated around here is like the real brunt of the force? Anyway, catching up on some chat messages here. Go to the end of the previous chapter. Yeah, okay. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. Kishimoto spreads are amazing. Yeah, we talked about that. It hates that chapter. Yeah, it's cursed or something. Oh, Kakuzu Holidays. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, we're doing well. How are you? How was your week? You haven't missed all that much. Maybe about 20 minutes ago, we just started talking about KCM Naruto's durability. This is actually the topic that you brought up a couple of weeks ago, and I did finally think of some arguments. Sort of. I wound up thinking about it a bit, and then I realized I didn't really have like a specific counter argument to what you were saying, or like a specifically clarified position, but I still wanted to take the time and kind of go through the feats and basically just present the data, and then have us kind of take the time to discuss it and see what kind of conclusions we can come to, as opposed to saying like, oh, this is the proof or of the perspective that you have to follow or anything like that. Hopefully that makes some sense. But to summarize very briefly, we talked about how the first thing that Naruto does when he gets KCM for the first time is that he attacks Kisame. And when he attacks Kisame, he gets himself embedded in the wall. And then when he pops himself out of the wall, he says that first of all, that he can't get himself out of the wall at first. Like, he's struggling to get his foot out. And then he says that, like, shit, I just passed it, didn't I? Basically, he sprains his ankle or twists his ankle, and he has to have Yamato give him a splint. So initially, his durability doesn't seem all that high, especially when you compare it to, like, what Tsunade does in part 1 when she, like, destroys this part of the city block. And then going to chapter 520, we talked about how Naruto tried to use a Biju bomb, and it exploded, and it burned his hands. So even though he was in KCM 1, he sustained an injury to his hands that then persisted through to his base form. And then we talked about, very briefly, the Raikage, how he sustained a punch from the Raikage and getting demonetized for that. And not that I monetized anyway, but yeah. Then he blocks a punch from the Raikage and doesn't seem to take any injuries here. He just, like, what is it? Oh yeah, let me ask you guys this question. I've heard people use the term no cell or no soul, and I think it's very clearly supposed to refer to taking 0 damage from an attack. Is the idea that, like, no cell in his body was damaged, so it was completely tanked? Is it a reference to, like, when Cell takes a punch from Vegeta and he just stands there and he's like, that did nothing to me? Like, something like that? I keep hearing people use the term, but I've never actually encountered a definition for it. But anyway, so we're just sort of slowly working our way through a variety of different feats for Naruto in KCM and trying to evaluate, like, how durable he actually is in that form. Let me catch up on chat a little bit. Let's look up the Insane Man. Oh yeah, he's just, like, completely gone at that point. If you check the scans, chat, and Sage's server, I posted the databook translation of the 10 Tails Cataclysm. Okay, awesome. Let's take a look at that real quick. Scans. I'm way behind here. Okay, I'm just gonna read out. Is this you, Steven Sexual Spectre? Nice. Yeah, I think we've chatted in Sage's server before. Let me just read out what you wrote. Users 10 Tails, 10 Pen Chi. The Angry God's Roar is the earth-breaking overture of destruction. The 10 Tails' unique ninjutsu that even Kurama was cautious of. With its immeasurable amount of chakra, it interferes with the natural energy, causing natural disasters such as earthquakes, lightning, tornadoes, and floods in an instant. It has a wide effect range and immense destructive power. It's an attack that exceeds mankind's knowledge, too much for humans to handle. The 10 Tails resurrection means the end of this world. Once the disasters are caused, there are no techniques to defend against them, and the people have no choice but to fear the wrath of God. Nice. Very, very intense. So I definitely like that. I appreciate you sharing that. I think the only thing that I would say as an addendum or whatever to that is, once we start to get to statements like, let me read that again, the people have no choice but to fear the wrath of God. Like, there's no techniques to defend against them. There's a bunch of stuff in the 3rd and 4th data books that have statements saying that, like, there is no defense against this jutsu. The one that immediately comes to mind is the transfer seal Amaterasu, which is the one that Sasuke has implanted in his eyes, and it just automatically activates when he meets Obito. And the 3rd data book very clearly says there is no escaping from this jutsu, but of course, you know, Obito gets away from it really quickly. So I think, yeah, I'm just reading your comment. Should be noted their techniques to defend against it. Yeah, exactly. Madara Susanoo, Naruto's cloak. There might be other things. I mean, like Kamui, you know, if it were activated, could survive the shock blast almost certainly. Other things like that. So I like the data books in that they give us more context and sometimes, like, very entertaining and interesting context for the stuff that we're talking about. I would just be cautious against using it, using any of those statements at face value because of how like sketchy they can be from time to time. Kakuzu and Holiday says, very tired somehow. I sleep 3 times per day. Oh well. Do you think you're just exhausted from the trip? You're back home now, right? Could it just be that you're recovering from all of that? Hopefully you get a chance to feel better soon. I'm sorry to hear that you're dealing with that. But yeah, please do sleep whenever you need to, whenever you can. Sleep is so important. Kakuzu Holidays then says, for the moment, it's mainly uncontrolled beginning KCM so far. Yeah, exactly. The picture that I'm starting to get in my head of this is that over time, Naruto gets better at using KCM chakra, and as he does, his durability also increases. And then also there's an additional layer of when he manages to block, when he's like cognitively trying to block attacks, like against the Raikage, I don't know if you saw that on the previous page, but he specifically like puts his arms up to guard against the attack, right? So it's kind of hard to see here, but you can kind of make out that his arms are crossed. But then over here, it's very clear. So he was actively blocking against the attack. And I do think that a block reinforces your defensive capacity, so to speak. Kakuzu and Holiday says probably recovering. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, please do, you know, to the extent that you can, like, find time to rest and recuperate. I don't want to get too personal or anything here, but like I have sleep apnea. It just means that like my my breathing at night is kind of hard, and I recently got some help for that, and I'm maybe like 10% of the way towards like actually getting the situation fixed. So I have a lot of work to do, but I am already feeling like such a huge difference. Just even if I'm getting like 4 or 5 hours of solid sleep per night, it's making a huge difference. I don't know what it is, you know. I've heard, I used to be inspired by, I don't know if you guys would know Mertzbau. He's like this industrial noise musician. I used to like a lot of stuff like that, like Nine Inch Nails and Einstürzen, Neubauten. Sorry, I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. But I would always hear that those guys like only slept 3 or 4 hours a night because they were so passionate and so talented, and like they were just constantly making art, and I was inspired by that. And I used to think that it was kind of like a virtue to get as little sleep as possible. But no, man, it's just like it drains you, and it's awful. So please, I hope that, you know, not that I should preach to you. You do whatever feels right for you, but I hope that like you can take as much time as you need to recover and feel better. Vector says, keep it up, bro. You got this. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's I feel more motivated now because like for a long time I was like, okay, I guess this is just how it's gonna be, right? I'm just kind of stuck with this and I'll have to work around it. But now that I've seen that it can change even a little bit, I'm like, oh shit, okay, and like I'm motivated to kind of keep pushing through it. So Kakuzu and Holiday says, didn't KCM Naruto said he could defeat it if he took another hit from the Raikage? Let me see. I know what he said. What he said a couple of chapters ago was, as a matter of fact, let me just pull it up in here. 541. I think is where we were at, right? 540, 541. Yeah, this one. So what he says when he gets hit is specifically, this punch is super solid that could hurt somebody. And I think it's fair to say that like that somebody could include him. Like if he hadn't blocked against that attack, if he took it to the face or something, it probably would have hurt him, right? Or was there another statement where he says this cold, where he says something about, yeah, not sure. It is kind of interesting. I wonder what his thought process was here, because, you know, this seems to be the moment where the Raikage actually starts to take things super seriously and is threatening him with his life. And Naruto's response isn't to try to outpace him. This is the shadow clone jutsu thing, right? Is he trying to create a shadow clone? Is he going to try to create a diversion and split up or something like that? I'm just curious what his thought process is. I think B does say later, though, that when the Raikage gets even stronger, doesn't B say he really would kill Naruto, something like that, which we'll get to in just a second. Before we get there, here's another feat as well, where Naruto manages to block an attack from the Raikage and apparently take no damage. Consider the fact that it does look like he's using his arms to protect himself again. So I think with his palm kind of facing outward, he does like intercept the blow and guard against it. So that's worth noting. But also, it's still a durability feat, even though he's guarding, because, you know, his bones didn't get broken or anything like that. It didn't, like, blow his fucking arm off like the Asura Path apparently did to Jiraiya, right? So he's think about like how Jiraiya would have done in this situation, or how like a lesser character like a Genin or something would have done. It's entirely possible that this blow would have just gone all the way through a lesser shinobi. So it is a durability feat for sure. But then he gets pushed back. There we are. This is such a cool feat too. Like the way that he just like sort of ducks under his arm, gets on the other side, and then with that momentum still like blasts him back and hurts him. I can't tell if it's like going through part of Samehada. Probably not. It's probably off to the side, but still so fast. It's really cool. And then then this as well. The back and forth in this entire fight is just really entertaining and well done. So I think this is where, like somewhere around here, is where we see B's statement about Naruto taking that damage and potentially dying. Just keep going. I think we're almost there. This fight isn't too long, so should be just up ahead. Oh yeah, here we go. So up until this point in the fight, I guess, the Raikage hasn't been at full power. Or at least if he was, it wasn't called out specifically. This kind of looks like a JoJo stand or something with the sound effects going over his head. But anyway, so B saying this and responding to this, I think it's fair to interpret this as B considers it possible for Naruto to potentially die here. You could contest that. You could say that maybe what Killer B is just saying is that he thinks his brother would kill Naruto if he had the chance and his attack connected and did enough damage. Like there are implied qualifiers that aren't being stated outright. So the fact that he says this is not necessarily proof that the Raikage could kill Naruto, but based on his facial expression, I mean, he stopped rapping, like he's taking this seriously, and he knows his brother and how strong he is. He knows quite a bit about like Kyuubi Biju transformation and stuff like that. He's been training directly with Naruto. I think it's fair to interpret this as the Raikage right now has the ability to kill Naruto if he hits him, but of course he doesn't, just like the Yellow Flash, right? Although I will say this this doesn't bother me. Yeah, it does. I'm not gonna lie. This here, I don't know. I know Naruto's aspiration is to be the hero of the village, and technically he already is. Like, he was the savior of Konoha previously, but there's something about his attitude when he was a kid, even though he was saying like, I'm the best, I'm gonna be the best, I'm always gonna be, I'm gonna, you know, be the strongest in the village and everyone will acknowledge me. There's something that felt a little bit more earnest about that, even though it was like obviously goofy. Something about the arrogance associated with this statement in this panel is just I know it's not the point. Like, it's not that he sees himself as the savior of the world. It's more like he's trying to live up to the legacy that he's inherited from his parents. But it does feel like a little bit much for me, for my tastes anyway. But yeah, I'd be curious how you guys feel about this. I remember hearing some contention as to whether or not the Raikage would literally have killed Naruto here. So my interpretation is that he probably wouldn't have, because he was saying, where did he say it was just a test? 1 second. Yeah, my attack was simply a test. You're only the second to have ever outrun my fastest punch. So I don't think that he actually would have killed Naruto here. I think he was putting on a show for him, and then basically he kind of believed on some level that Naruto had what it takes to be able to evade his punch, but he wanted to know that Naruto had the mental fortitude and resolution to actually stick to his word and to face the threat of someone who might be much stronger than him and not back down, and also physically to be able to outpace him. But this phrase, simply a test, makes me think that the Raikage was prepared to kill Naruto if he had to, but he wasn't actually going to go through with it, something like that. Spectre says, Naruto's attitude like this is because he starts believing that he has to do everything on his own and be the savior, which Itachi tells him, like, if you do this, you'll become like Madara. Oh, I see. Do you think it's less about his arrogance and more about his sense of duty to try and, like, take all, like Sasuke does, like, take everything on his own shoulders? And then Itachi admits that's why he failed, because he tried to do everything on his own. That's a good point. That's fair. I think, yeah, if you put it in the greater framework of things like that, that makes me like it more. That's a good interpretation. I think the reason why I was bouncing off of it was just it just felt like a little, I don't know, the whole like child of prophecy thing is not something that I tend to enjoy. I don't tend to really enjoy stories about where like fate and destiny and prophecy are the things that are driving the plot. But that's just me. That's subjective. I think I like underdog narratives where like creepy weird losers are maybe that's not the right phrasing, but where like, I don't know. I think I talked about in a previous stream about how like in Dark Souls 3, which is one of my favorite games, you're basically just like a pile of stupid shitty ashes that somebody smushed into something that kind of looks like a person. You're probably made up of the remains of a bunch of other failures, and you're a total loser. And then people are like, oh cool, sure, go try to save the world or whatever. Like they're just so dejected and tired of it. They're like, fine, whatever, we're screwed anyway. I guess you can't fuck it up any worse than it's already gotten. I tend to prefer that to the like, you're our only hope narratives. But not that they, you know, like Zelda games can still be fucking awesome even if you're the chosen hero of destiny. But yeah, anyway, I think because Naruto is a story of misfits kind of conquering adversity, it feels a little antithetical to that. But when you put it in the larger framework, that actually makes sense. Like, Naruto's not fully mature yet. He's still kind of coming into his own. He's starting to realize what being a Hokage or being the savior is going to be, and he's like overplaying it. Like, he's getting too overhyped, and he needs to like simmer down and learn what the actual consequences of being in a position like that are going to be. That makes sense. Yeah, and Itachi, like you pointed out, Itachi's a great foil for that sort of thing. Like, don't make my mistakes. Okay, so proceeding with the KCM durability, let's talk a little bit about the Edo fight. There's not a whole lot that goes on here for KCM Naruto as far as I could tell. So Naruto does kind of reach out and grab onto this boulder, and he does so with his chakra arm, and that doesn't hurt him. But I mean, okay, normal human beings can push off of a rock at relatively high speeds and not have their hands break and stuff like that, let alone shinobi of this tier. So I don't think there's too much to glean from that specifically. And I don't think there's anything else that really happens in this fight. The only other thing that happens that I can recall is that Naruto gets wrapped up by the chameleon. But the chameleon doesn't hurt him, but it's also like the tongue of the snake that's coming out of its mouth, and like the snake tail head thing. So I don't know. This doesn't strike me as a feat or an anti-feat particularly. It's just Naruto gets restrained in midair. He doesn't have access to the ground. He's not like fighting back. Everything happens so fast. Really much I can say about that off the top of my head. He's able to resist the heat of Itachi's flame. Okay, do you remember if that's from... Where would that be? From the Amaterasu previously? This is where they wind up sealing Nagato. See? Maybe I skipped over it before. I guess so. He's on the dog. Oh, he does like jump away from the flames there, but he does say like "wa" and then "ugh," right? So it seems like he is. I guess you could argue that like he doesn't know yet that Itachi has been freed, right? He hasn't figured out what's going on with the crow, so he might just be reacting out of panic, thinking that Itachi was trying to hit him with the Amaterasu, which is why he says like he missed. Okay. Oh, from Itachi's fireball, says Spectre. Okay, yeah, let's go back to 549. Okay, so yeah, sort of. It's a little iffy because Killer Bee slashes it and the flames kind of go around him. So Naruto's not just like tanking the fire to his face. It kind of looks like Naruto's on fire there, but I think that's just the flames of, like, he's got some Kyuubi Chakra flames that are kind of coming off of him. Like, you can see one right over here coming off of his head. And then the flames that are darker in the background and with the shading and everything, I think it just means that, yeah, the flame is kind of going around him. He probably took some, like, heat from it. But B was the one who actually did the slicing, and he doesn't seem to have been burned. Although, isn't, like, Samehada pissed off when he does that? Where's that? Oh, yeah. I'm looking right at it. Samehada is so pissed. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Well, see, he takes some taijutsu here from Itachi. That's worth noting as well. I don't know what Itachi's, like, highest taijutsu feats are, though. Like, most of his, like, most impressive stuff comes from ninjutsu, genjutsu, stuff like the Susanoo. I don't know that he has, like, maybe I'm just forgetting something, but I don't know that he has, like, incredible taijutsu striking strength feats. But it's true that that's one of the things that is worth including. Like, if you just say that at face value, right? Naruto takes hits from Itachi and doesn't take any damage from them. Like, that at face value sounds pretty impressive, right? Spectre says, yeah, it's a weird feat, but yeah. Well, we're gonna come back to fire feats in just a minute here as well. So you're saying, oh, Spectre says that these are his best taijutsu feats. Okay, then yeah, so it's actually more of a feat for Itachi rather than for Naruto, if that's the case. Somehow I never noticed that Killer Bee actually throws his tentacle up through the ground like that. That's pretty cool. Oh, it's a genjutsu anyway, though. Okay. This is a great fight. Kind of short. I feel like this fight could have gone on a whole lot longer and been consistently interesting, but still really interesting interactions, nice combinations of different attacks that are being used. So it's really good. Okay, so let's continue. This I find pretty interesting. So this is in chapter 559. This is the chapter where Madara first gets summoned. One of the coolest entrances in the series as well. And the first thing that we see Naruto doing over here is he grabs multiple swords with his bare hands. Well. They're not bare hands. They're the chakra hands that are coming off of... Wait, hang on. No. I think it's kind of hard to tell. If you look here, it looks like one of them might be his own hand that's enshrouded in Kyuubi Chakra, and then the other two might not be. It's kind of hard to tell. Maybe this one is his hand, this one is his hand, and then maybe this one is his chakra hand, or like the third one is his chakra hand. Anyway, he's able to do so without getting cut. And this, I think, is one of those things that is kind of weird, but also a really important thing to meditate on, for lack of a better word, is that we know that, like, Minato is capable of cutting Obito's flesh with a basic kunai. Right? Obito's one of the strongest characters in the series. Granted, he was weakened at the time, but Obito himself was then capable of throwing kunai, throwing shuriken at Killer Bee and cutting through his tails. Minato was capable of cutting through Killer Bee's tails, and it seemed like he was, Minato and Killer Bee had that statement where they were like, are you prepared for a mutual strike? Like, we could possibly both die at the same time here, right? And they were just talking about using simple bladed weapons. So again, some of the strongest characters, most powerful characters in the series, and they're capable of hurting each other with basic, simple, like presumably steel stabbing weapons. And here we go. Obviously it's not a stab, but Naruto is still grabbing these with his hands and just completely negating their effect, holding them in place, repelling his enemies and not getting hurt by them. I think that's pretty significant. I think that the chakra that's surrounding him is definitely enhancing his durability. And in Naruto, even though that this is a very simple, like AP, like a low AP thrusting weapon attack, the fact that he's able to do this, given what we know about how effective steel weaponry is in Naruto, is impressive in and of itself, right? Especially when you look at somebody like Kakuzu, and if you assume that Kakuzu is making tactical decisions in character, he's not just acting reflexively when he turns on Diamond Morph to protect against like Raido's ebony blade, right? Kakuzu doesn't just grab that ebony blade and break it like Naruto does to Pain's chakra rod. But Naruto grabs that rod and snaps it. Naruto grabs these swords and just firmly holds onto them and negates their attack. So I think this is definitely, we're starting to see a picture of, despite the silly aspects of Naruto getting harmed previously with KCM, the more he gains confidence, the more he gains control, the more he's able to, and I think this is a clone too, right? This might be one of his clones. The better he's able to handle attacks that can even potentially harm like Kage level people. So I think he's just getting consistently better at being durable, and pretty soon we're going to move on to the Jinchuriki stuff, and once we get there, we'll start going back to like Kakuzu versus Pain. Although this is this is kind of funny, right? Like he dashes, he overextends, he winds up crashing into a tree. He doesn't seem to be injured here, right? He just sort of like crashes into the tree and then breaks through it, but he doesn't really seem to be harmed. He does say arg, and he does say I put too much effort into that. He's a little dirtied up, but so keep this in mind for when we talk about Yugito later. But obviously, like, he's strong enough to compared to before, right? When he got his little foot stuck in a little part of a little wall and he had to have a fucking brace for it. Now he's capable of smashing into a fucking tree and demolishing the tree, and he's like fine, right? He's just kind of annoyed, if anything. Okay, checking comments over here. Should be noted, says Spectre, that these are like random Zetsu, and it's stating that depending on who's wielding the weapon, they have different strengths. Oh yeah, that's true. I guess my assumption is just that the swords themselves are just basic, piercing, slashing ninja weapons, and therefore they wouldn't have any other special properties to them. And I guess the fact that they're being wielded by White Zetsu kind of reinforces that, right? It's nothing like he's not grabbing like Kusanagis. Although when he was in like Four Tails mode versus Orochimaru, he did block the Kusanagi to his chest. It couldn't get through Kurama's chakra. So the question then becomes, do we think that Naruto and KCM is more or less durable than that Kusanagi negating Four Tails mode? Hey, I'm gonna try to pronounce your name. I apologize in advance if I do it incorrectly. Please let me know. But is it Nikhil or Nikhil Sharma? Thank you for stopping by the stream. It's great to have you. Hope you're doing well. We're just talking about some Naruto durability stuff. Really do appreciate you taking the time to check out the stream. Oh yeah, let me know if you have any questions or comments on what I'm saying. Basically, to kind of give a very brief recap, I'm just trying to look at like KCM Naruto, aka Kyuubi Cloak mode or Kyuubi Chakra Mode, Naruto's durability, and how he starts off being sort of like weirdly not particularly durable and needing like a leg splint, but then eventually getting more and more durable as he becomes more competent and capable of like harnessing his chakra cloak and defending against characters like the Raikage, and then later on the whatchamacallit, the Jinchuriki and all that stuff. Yeah, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Okay, so proceeding forward, I think that was honestly pretty much most of what I wanted to talk about before we got to the Jinchuriki. At this point, Naruto gets access to KCM 2, and so things do change a little bit. So let's just jump right in to the actual like Jinchuriki fight. Let me go back and my notes here. Oh, was there another one at 564? Did we already talk about that? One sec. Getting organized here. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, this is at the, like, right before the Jinchuriki fight. This is what I was using for my thumbnail today. I don't think this is necessarily anything that we're going to scale off of, necessarily, although we potentially could. But notice that, again, Obito, one of the toughest characters in the series, whose mask is capable of withstanding, although it gets, like, slightly cut by, what is it, like the Raikiri enhanced kunai that gets thrown by Kakashi later on. It's still, obviously, like, really solid. And Naruto is capable of bashing up against it with his skull. Granted, he is wearing a forehead protector, so the metal element does provide him some amount of defense, but whatever force is behind Obito and Naruto's movement at this point should be getting transferred into like his neck and his and his spine and all that. And Naruto's able to basically just take it. Now, I don't think that this is any kind of like insanely impressive feat or anything like that, but it's just funny to kind of note that yeah, he is hard-headed and he's capable of pushing back Obito, and I guess doing so at on a pretty even keel, because they both wind up like the fact that Obito's head is kind of like snapped backwards and he's getting pushed back like this kind of seems to me to indicate that they're both quote unquote equal or relative in the amount of force that they're applying to each other. Now he does have a mild like pain response here where he says right, or like ugh. The reason why I'm pointing this out is that when we start to get to Yugito and stuff like that, I want to compare the amount of damage that Naruto takes, or the amount of like vocal response he has to Yugito's interactions with him, to what we see over here, right? So what does Naruto's response, like vocal response and stuff like that, indicate to us about the amount of damage that he's taking at any given time? Random lore drop says Spectre. Obito says he custom made these masks. Yeah, doesn't he say like they're custom forged, they're like battle grade tough or something like that? Yeah, that's kind of a cool line. I wonder how he made them. Did he like the spiral pattern seems to, well, I mean, it obviously just looks like he's got like one big Rinnegan for a head, right? But his previous mask, the swirly mask, was based off of like swirly Zetsu, Guru Guru Zetsu, like his, I don't know what you would call them, like his, not his tendrils, but the different like spines of that suit that he was essentially wearing, kind of swirling and coalescing on a point on his head. So it makes me wonder if he somehow used Ashirama cells, or he used like a Zetsu or something like that to help forge the mask based on that, or if not, if it's made out of some other kind of material. But that being said, if Naruto is able to damage this, we were talking before about how those other swords, right, are not necessarily like Kusanagi, that they have like some sort of special property to them or a legend associated with them that makes them supposedly capable of like feats that are above a normal weapon. But this is a specially forged piece of defensive equipment by Obito. And so anybody who's capable of damaging this, I would say that counts as an impressive feat. That being said, at some point, it might be fun to talk about, like, clothing and how, like, as far as I know, we don't really get any statements to the effect that, like, the clothing in Naruto, maybe, I bet there's something in an art book or in a fan book or something like that that describes how, like, the clothing is, like, woven with special fibers that make them ideally suited for battle. I have not seen anything like that yet, personally. And so it is kind of funny to see how, like, in the Pain fight, for example, Pain's clothing remains pretty much entirely undamaged. And then when he takes the Six Tails Naruto Bijuu Bomb, he then has, like, his shirt is ripped, but the rest of his clothing is, like, basically fine. And so clothing winds up getting used as sort of like an abstract representation of a character's overall damage state and like how well they're doing in a fight, as opposed to being treated literally as, like, you know, should we literally assume that all their articles of clothing are made out of material that is capable of withstanding, like, city level, country level, whatever explosions? Or is it enough to just say, you know, it's just more of a non-literal representation of what their durability is and, like, how much damage they've taken at a given point in the fight? Does there need to be a literal, specific explanation as to why their clothes are so durable, or can we just look at it more in the abstract, like more metaphorically? Spectre says, Obito just chilling inside Kamui making masks. Yeah, maybe he's got a forge back there. You know, everybody needs a hobby. And we already know that the one main hobby that Obito has is kind of unhealthy, so it'd be good if he has something else to do with his time. Obito chose been a craftsman, or could have been a craftsman if he decided not to become a terrorist. Yep. He's definitely talented. He could have done something else. But so here's something that you could say for KCM Naruto's durability, which is, okay, well, he's experiencing the heat from these lava-style scorching rocks. Granted, I believe this is, like, because it's lava style, right? That means it's a Keke Genkai, at least. So this is a particularly strong technique. Not weird at all that Naruto would be potentially wary around those particular attacks. But let's keep that in mind for later, because we're going to talk about, we're going to see Naruto get hurt by them pretty soon. So here Naruto's coming in, and he goes up against the Aqua Mirror Jutsu, and he clashes with his own Rasengan, and he doesn't seem to be wounded or damaged by the clash with his own Rasengan. Now, there's probably not much for us to go on there, because I think there's a statement in the third data book that says that when two jutsu of equal strength and equal chakra clash, then they just like cancel each other out, essentially. Here, when I first read this, what I was going to say is that you could make an argument that Naruto's durability is enough to withstand like an attack of his own Rasengan, and therefore if you would go and look for other like KCM Rasengan feats, then Naruto's durability could scale off at that. But since the Rasengan is actually impacting another Rasengan, I don't think it, as opposed to like hitting his like empty palm or something like that, or hitting his chest, I don't know how far we can scale this, because it feels like these two attacks are just annihilating in the same way that, like, vaguely similar way to how these two characters are just clashing and they just push off one another, right? Not much data we can get from there. This is kind of interesting here. I don't know if we have much other information or much other scaling for water style bubble jutsu. I think there is some stuff in the anime where Utakara uses this against pain, but as for the manga itself, this is the only time we see this used. So I'm curious as to what conclusions we're supposed to draw from this. How much chakra, how much energy is in each of these bubbles? Do the bubbles themselves like transfer energy in a way that kind of like ignores durability, quote unquote, like a medical ninjutsu would? Or is it literally just an explosion and it's basically functioning like a paper bomb or something like that? So I wish we had like a little bit more context about here, but here's a very clear example of Naruto being significantly hurt by this attack, to the point where not only is he pushed back, but he's also experiencing like verbal pain that he's expressing twice, and he's like curled up and he's like hunched over. So this attack seems to have hurt him quite a bit. I'm actually going to take a minute and look to see if there's anything on Naruto Versity about this attack. 1 second, I can pull it over if there is. What is it called specifically? Bubble jutsu? Okay. So it might be in here, let's see. I don't know if this is relevant, but I'm glad that it showed up. Hi, buddy. Let's see. Okay. Water release bubbles technique. It's a water release technique that Utakata, the Jinchuriki of the Six Tails, releases. It releases a time bomb style soap bubble with molded chakra in it, and it explodes at the jutsu user's signal. So it seems to be kind of like he's generating something very similar to a paper bomb, in that like if Tobirama were to run up on Naruto and put a paper bomb on his shoulder, we might expect to see something like this, right? It's a focused shaped explosion that's being like its payload of energy is being delivered directly on the character's body, as opposed to like exploding in his face and pushing him back. But this is definitely a very pronounced amount of damage, and it's probably no coincidence that well, let me rephrase that. So B sees Naruto in this position, and when B takes Naruto out of the explosion, remember, it's not Naruto himself who like regains awareness of his surroundings and says, oh shit, I gotta get out of here. He's still too busy recovering from the attack, and B has to yank him out with his tail. It's kind of cool that he's like using his other tail to swing off of the tree limb over here, and like saves Naruto. I don't know if it would have killed him, but he saves Naruto from getting harmed by further bubbles. And then of course here's the clash with Yugito, which I'll get to in just a second. So let's see. Spectre says could have been, oh right, Spectre says this is an insane feat for Yagura. However, Obito is enhancing these Jinchuriki, so I don't think you can scale them to their alive forms. Interesting. So yeah, I'm sorry, I spaced on the Yagura thing. Oh yeah, the water mirror thing. Yeah, this is kind of like uh when Madara uses like Uchiha Reflection, except I think it's even better in a sense because Uchiha Reflection just turns it's the thing that he does with that big like fan, like ceremonial fan weapon thing. This might be even more impressive because the fan, if I remember correctly, converts any incoming chakra to wind energy and blasts it out in a retaliatory strike. But obviously, if the person who's attacking you is just like has an advantage against wind or has a wind affinity themselves, that might be less effective on them. Whereas this is like a specific one-to-one counter, and it's always going to ensure like an equal retaliation of incoming force, right? So that's that's right. It is a pretty impressive feat for Yagura there. 1 second, I'm gonna get some water. So this is an interesting thing to note when talking about Kakuzu versus Pain, or talking about the Jinchuriki versus KCM Naruto. Something that's a little clearer, easier to see in the color version of the manga. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I wanted to respond to your thing about the Obito enhancing these Jinchuriki. So yeah, I think we've talked about that briefly on stream before. I'd be curious to hear if you have like more thoughts that you want to share about that. Please let me know. But obviously, like the Jinchuriki all have Sharingan and Rinnegan in their eyes, and that is an enhancement. The Sharingan is going to be increasing their perception and reaction times, and the Rinnegan is going to be increasing their ability to coordinate with one another and their effective field of vision. So, the interesting question that's come up before, I think it's come up in a couple of debates as well, is whether or not Obito himself is like sending chakra into the Jinchuriki and empowering them and making them stronger. And I think we talked about this a couple streams ago. They do have like black chakra rods embedded in their skin, or in their flesh rather. But the purpose of those chakra rods seems to be to link the Biju that's inside the Geromazo, the Gero statue, to them, and let Obito basically send chakra to them to trigger their like Biju mode transformations and stuff like that. Which at first he's doing very kind of slowly and carefully because he's not able to fully control it at first, and then he does get control of it eventually. But like when he first brings out Kokuo, obviously Kokuo like resists against like his commands, so to speak, and so he has to like apportion the chakra out appropriately. But yeah, that all being said, I don't think that it's ever like I've not been convinced that Obito is making any of these characters faster or stronger or more durable or anything like that. Like I don't think he's pumping chakra into them the same way that Pain is sending chakra into his paths, because at the end of the day, they're already Edo Tensei. They don't need to be like reanimated the same way that Pain reanimates his paths, right? So yeah, I think the enhancement specifically is coming from the Sharingan and the Rinnegan. Now, some people believe that the Sharingan is when somebody turns their Sharingan on, basically, that gives them an inherent speed boost. We talked about this last time, but as a very brief recap, let's say Sasuke is just sprinting as fast as he can, and his Sharingan is off, and he's going at his max speed. And then he turns his Sharingan on. His legs don't suddenly get faster, and his overall body speed doesn't, like, get boosted, you know, just because he turned his Sharingan on. That's not the way that it works. It doesn't, at least as far as I've ever seen, it doesn't send more chakra into your body, enhancing your movement speed or anything like that. What it does, it is allows you to read all of the tiny, subtle motions and bits of body language and muscle flexions and stuff like that on your opponent, and use that to predict what they're going to do, and that gives you a head start. So it makes you effectively faster. It means that effectively in combat you're going to be able to outpace people that you might not have outpaced previously. Obviously it's not like some sort of turbo boost that lets you win against any given character. Somebody brought up that you know, Lee in part 1 says to Sasuke, like when Sasuke tries to use the Sharingan on him, like the Sharingan might let you pierce through illusions, but there's no illusion here. Like it's just raw speed, raw technique. So it's not like, again, it's not going to give you some sort of invincible speed boost. It's just going to help enhance your overall combat effectiveness by letting you use your movement more effectively and like preemptively, if that makes sense. So an enhancement for sure, absolutely, like indisputably. An overall stats boost, probably not. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm not sure if that's what you were saying specifically, so sorry if that was a bit over much. I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of the topic because it is an interesting topic and it's something that has kind of come up a few times on stream. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. I'll catch up on comments. Spectre says, since he's using the black rods, he's putting their chakra into him. Otherwise, he couldn't control them since they're Kabuto's Edo. I think he's able to, that basically like Kabuto was able to like give them the basic command of follow orders and attack. And I think we also see Obito using the sign of the ram to kind of give them commands at various points in the fight. The most obvious example of that is when he triggers. You don't really see him doing it here, although he does have one hand raised. It's kind of hard to see. But when he when he makes them all enter the version 2 state, he like specifically comes out of the ground and raises up his hand and uses the mudra, or the hand sign of the ram, which is then consistently used throughout the series by characters who are like controlling things remotely. Like Datara uses it when he like explodes his bombs. I think Shikamaru uses it when he's controlling his shadow possession, a bunch of stuff like that. That actually came up in the Noodles versus Apollo debate that happened a month or so ago, and that's kind of what prompted me to do the stream that I did a few weeks ago, where I was talking about like who holds the leash, like Obito's 6 paths, like who's in control. So not to self-promote, but feel free to check that stream out if you haven't already, if it's something you'd be interested in. And then I'll try to call it out when I see it, because I think we'll wind up scrolling past it pretty soon. Spectre then says, also, he doesn't use the black rods to control the tail beast transformations. He uses the ghetto statue. I can show you if you like. Yeah, please. Please feel free to send that scan or to point me towards that page. I do believe it's sort of a combination of what both of us are saying. I think he's using like the ghetto path of the Rinnegan to control the ghetto statue, and part of that is that the chakra from all of the Biju, or just you could just say the Biju themselves, are actually living inside the ghetto statue. So these characters right now aren't technically Jinchuriki anymore. They're dead people who have had their Biju extracted and stored in the ghetto statue. In order to engage in their beast mode transformations, whether that means or beach in order for them to go beast mode, they need to have chakra essentially being sent from the ghetto statue into them. And what Obito is doing, as far as I understand it, is he's basically like modulating the amount of chakra that comes out of the Biju statue into them, and then restraining it and controlling it so that it remains within them and does what they say. When we get to Son Goku and like Naruto meets him for the first time, there's sort of 2 sets of restraints around him. There's the chakra change, and then there's the big spike through his chest. And I think like the spike through his chest keeps him locked in the ghetto statue, but then the chains also like have Obito make him do what Obito wants. And then the rod, the black rod, is a link between the Jinchuriki on the outside and the whatchamacallit, the Biju on the inside of the ghetto statue, which is why Naruto has to go around and like slap and break the rods, because he's not freeing like Son Goku when he does that per se. He's just removing the link between the Jinchuriki on the outside and the Biju on the inside, and that way like Obito can no longer like control them. Like he loses control of them at that point. So hopefully that made some kind of sense. Oh, we got some chapters. Cool. So go to 569 and 570. Let's do that. $569. Okay. Yeah, this is sort of what I was talking about, right? So we got the chains that are kind of surrounding him, and then the spike through his chest. Let's just read. I'm gonna skim through this, but feel free to call out if I scroll past it. So we see the chains are actually coming out of the chakra rod. So Obito is raising up his hand and saying he's gonna suck them. He's going to do them the suck, and the chains kind of materialize and wrap around the or emanate forward from this rod, or maybe not. Maybe it's like kind of hard to tell exactly, because the rod here looks like it's in his fur, which is not near his ear, but then the chain is. Okay, so I'm not entirely clear on exactly what the choreography is there. Oh yeah. So he explains that the chakra rod is embedded in the nape of his neck, if I remember correctly. It like moves up to the nape of their neck when they do their transformation, right? So Obito is materializing the chakra rods. That's like resonating with or materializing the chakra chains. That's resonating with the chakra rod, and then the rod is in the back of his neck. But the chains themselves are kind of like starting to wrap around and connect to where Obito is, if I understand that correctly. Spectre says the rod binds the chakra to the Jinchuriki, and the big chain ties the chakra to the Geto statue. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know if I articulated it correctly. Because there's sort of three things going on, right? There's the connection between the Jinchuriki and the Biju. There's the connection between Obito and the Biju. There's a connection between Obito and the Jinchuriki, and then there's a connection between the Biju and the Geto statue, right? So let's see. Son Goku says there's a rod sticking out. The chakra chains that restrained me come from it. They're the same change as on the Rinnegan Geto statue. Okay, so the rod that he has coming out of his neck is what's actually generating the chains. But Obito clearly can materialize the chains and connect to the chains to then be able to like rein him in. Okay. The sun on your chest, where it was when you were in Jinchuriki form, you know. Because we expand in size when we undergo Biju transformation, the rods migrate to the base of our necks. Plus, since we're bigger, they also become harder to find. I feel like he does say something about like the connection between the Jinchuriki and the Biju. Oh yeah, so yeah, Obito can manipulate these rods because they're Rinnegan rods at the end of the day, right? So he can form a connection between those rods and have the chains kind of come out of them and wrap around Naruto or wrap around the Biju. The rods bind all they touch. They're stronger restraints than Nagato Pain's Geto powers. So that's interesting. Not that I want to really get into Obito versus Pain here, but one of my little pet theories about Obito versus Nagato is that since Obito could only control one of the Rinnegan, if you're talking about Pain scaling to Obito, then maybe there's an argument that since Pain can hold two of them, that he's just got much better chakra control or much better chakra or something like that. Like there's an argument there for Pain, but regardless of that, Obito seems to have like better command of some of the Rinnegan jutsu than Pain even did. So kind of calls that into question a little bit. Okay, let me see what you said. And 570 as well. Okay. Yeah, so okay, so he removes the chakra rod. Okay, pulls it out. And when he does, all the chains he manages to break the chains, pulls out. Okay. I guess this chain through my belly won't go away. So that's the one that keeps Son Goku himself actually in the Geto statue. That rod just temporarily binds my chakra to the Jinchuriki's body. Right, that's what I was trying to say. I wasn't doing a very good job of explaining it. But like, the rod is what... So an alive Jinchuriki has a Biju inside them, behind a seal, and obviously like they've been removed by the time that the Akatsuki get them and extract them, and the Biju are kept inside the statue, and they're kept imprisoned in the statue by the big chain that kind of goes through their chest. But Obito then, you know, sometimes obviously he has the Jinchuriki that he's controlling, let's just say this, he has the Jinchuriki with him, and then he wants to sometimes have them go into their like partial transformation, sometimes into V2, sometimes into Biju mode. And he's clearly capable of interacting with those black rods and having chains come out of them and all that. And then we can look at when he comes out of the ground and he uses that hand sign to trigger that transformation, in my opinion anyway, trigger that transformation. And the fact that here, once the rod is disconnected, right, the Ghetto statue pulls Son Goku back in, but the connection between Son Goku and Roshi is severed, and it's kind of like Vegeta getting his tail cut and going back to normal mode almost. Like the Bichu transformation ends. And I think we did go over this on stream before. Roshi here looks human, so it doesn't look like he has the normal sort of patterns that you would see on an Edo Tensei. But later on, when the Edo Tensei is released, we do see that his soul is one of the ones that kind of comes up. There's like 6 beams of light or whatever that correspond to the 6 characters that were Jinchuriki that were released from the Edo Tensei. So he is still definitely an Edo Tensei. He's not just being puppeted by the Black Rod itself. Anyway. Spectre says, Nagato has a larger pool of chakra than Obito. However, I still think Obito wins that fight when it comes down to it. Anyway, the most important stuff I said being that I believe Obito made the Edo Jinchuriki perfect Jinchuriki. Interesting. Well, I'm gonna just say that that's a cool take and not get into the perfect Jinchuriki stuff, because I saw Sage had posted, or was it you? You or Hobby Horse or somebody actually recommended that I go check out the resources, and specifically the resources about B being a perfect Jinchuriki, and I still think that there's a misunderstanding about what that term actually means, but I want to go and like reread that new information and educate myself a bit more before I talk about it, because yeah, obviously I do have some opinions about that term and how it gets used. But essentially, I think there's an argument that you could make that some of these Jinchuriki are effectively stronger in a certain sense than their alive counterparts, because when they start, so when Yugito uses a Bichu Bomb, or anybody else, oh, that was you, yeah, thank you. I was looking at that stuff and I was like, there was a lot of really good stuff in there, so I really appreciate you sending that to me. Thank you. But yeah, when a shinobi, when they're just alive, a normal shinobi fighting normal battles or whatever, they always have to keep their chakra control in mind, because the more chakra they use, the less chakra they have to empower their physical movements. Some people use chakra to empower their perception, their defense, and also if you run out of chakra, really if you run out of physical stamina, but if you run out of chakra, you can die. If you are low on stamina and you try to overdraw from your stamina / chakra pool, you can kill yourself unintentionally by, basically causing yourself to to overexert and expire. So, you gotta be really careful with that. So Yugito, whenever she uses a Bichu Bomb, also, sorry, maybe I'm worrying too much, but something about the way that I phrased that seemed kind of weird, so I'm sorry if that was like a weird way to say that. I don't know if that phrasing could potentially be triggering for anybody, so I apologize if so. I might put a little warning or something in the description. Sorry about that. But anyway, when you overdraw from your chakra pool, you could potentially die. And so, in my opinion, Yugito's in a fight against Hidan and Kakuzu, and she's alive. She's thinking about, okay, if I make this Bichu Bomb, how much of my chakra is it going to take up? How big can I actually make it? Can I actually use... how big can I actually make it? How many can I make? And is it tactically wise for me to use this if I have to charge it up when I have 2 different people who are kind of running around me, and I have like 2 different mobile targets, potentially, up to 6 or so mobile targets with Kakuzu's hearts deployed. All those considerations, I think, wind up playing a role in determining whether or not she uses the Bichu Bomb at that moment. Obito can just make her use a Bichu Bomb when she's in Edo Tensei that is as big as she can possibly make, to the point where if she did it while she were alive, she would use up all her chakra and expire, and then she could just get back up and do it again. So there is, it's kind of a nitpicky argument. Like, I don't know if I would really use this in a debate or anything, but you could potentially look at the Bichu bombs that are used by the Edo Jinchuriki, or any of their techniques, any of the chakra-based techniques, and say that these could, in theory, be way stronger than their alive versions because they don't ever have to hold back about the amount of chakra that they're putting into them. Of course, you can always counter that by saying, yeah, but if like Edo Kakashi were to make a Raikiri, that doesn't mean that his Raikiri could just scale infinitely, right? Like he could put any arbitrary amount of chakra into it and then just you know, make a universal AP Raikiri or something crazy like that. Obviously, the jutsu themselves seem to have a limit to them, and these characters are said to have the same abilities that they had when they were alive. So they're not like turbo versions of their alive selves. But when they're being forced to, and without their consent and without like any considerations of the amount of chakra that they're inputting into their jutsu, then it sort of becomes more ambiguous. Like, could Obito potentially be forcing these characters to just use much more like broad-ranging attacks than they would be capable of handling as their alive forms? Entirely open to discussion. None of what I said is like a definitive thing. It's just sort of interesting to think about how the tactical implications change when you have literally infinite stamina. If you ever do a stream about the Jinchuriki, I'd be willing to explain my reasoning as to why they're perfect Jinchuriki, or I can do it right now, just don't want to explain it all in text. That's... let me think about that. I think I would like to actually have like a perfect Jinchuriki stream, or like a Jinchuriki-centric stream, so please feel free, if you want to share any of your thoughts about that whatsoever. I'd be totally happy to hear them and discuss them. I think the only thing that I'm hesitating about is that I just want to make sure like you've brought new knowledge that I wasn't aware of like to my attention, and I want to make sure that any statements that I'm making are based on whatever the best knowledge I have is, and I can't really do that in good faith if I haven't like read it and taken the time to do that. So I appreciate it though. So returning to Naruto's durability here. Basically, we start to see Naruto actually, and we're gonna get to Yugito, and we're gonna wrap up the durability thing pretty soon here. Basically, Naruto gets hit by this attack from Roshi, and I don't think this specific, like, he doesn't call out the name of that attack, right? I'm gonna just look in the 4th data book real quick and see if there's anything about that. But we don't really, as far as I know, we don't really have great scaling for that particular attack. Because, or not that it's like bad scaling, we just don't have that many instances of it being used. Nothing in the, no, I'm not seeing anything right now. Okay, I'll have to look into that later. But yeah, so I guess I would assume that this is lava style because it has the same kind of aesthetic design and the same kind of like specs and flex and stuff like that that his previous lava style did. And it's potentially stronger because he's got one tail out now and it's covering his whole body as opposed to just being projectiles that he's spewing out. And he comes near to Naruto, and so this is interesting. It looks like it actually burns the KCM cloak off of him, which is crazy. It could also just be, though, that this is like an overlay of steam, and the way that they decided to color it in is just meant to kind of show how much hotter it is and how like the hot steam was burning his flesh, as opposed to like well, I guess like it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, you can see that Naruto's flesh, like through the KCM cloak, is actually kind of hurt and burned and scarred a little bit. And I think we were talking to Kakuzu and Holidays about this before. Killer B definitely seems to think that the rodent hairball, which is I think another like fire-based attack, is capable of hurting Naruto as well. So you could really, if you wanted to prove that Yugito has like the ability to hurt KCM Naruto, you could just look at this and be like, well, look, Killer B certainly seems to think so. He's trying to get out of the way of these attacks, and so there you go. How you scale that back to a fight with Kakuzu or Pain, that could be a little trickier. A few steps involved in there to get that accurately, but still worth noting that potentially Naruto could be armed by these attacks, right? On the other hand, if you look at the amount of damage that they're doing to the trees that they impact, there's not a ton of destructive capacity kind of on display here. They're maybe on the order of paper bombs. We've kind of established that paper bomb style attacks can still hurt people around this level, potentially. But at the same time, like, if we're looking for like a DC feat for these, you're gonna maybe be hard pressed to find that when this is the extent of the damage that we see done. Spectre says, yeah, I'll make sure to provide all the scans and stuff. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I can also look at the resources thing and just like kind of go through the 4th data book. I haven't done, like, I've only ever read the ones on Naruto VS, so I think it'd probably just be fun to go through that in general. I can do it beforehand if you like. I did make a post about it in Sage's server if I want to look at it at a later time. Okay, cool. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I don't want to give you extra homework to do or like make you do my research for me, so to speak. If there's anything that you know off the top of your head or that you just want to share for fun, then please feel free. I'd be happy to discuss it with you. But of course, I'm not gonna, you've already been kind and helpful in providing me with access to that material, and at this point, I'm happy to do the work to actually go through and look at it, and then we can totally like chat about it and collaborate, or like communicate about it going forward as well. Whatever feels right, basically. And then he says, I think it's just a scorch marks. Yeah, I was probably reading into it too much. It's probably just a way of demonstrating the damage that was done. Let's see. So yeah, and then here's some statements about the way that the ocular enhancements are working. I think it was Swag Kage was like, in one of his debates was saying that he thought that the Jinchuriki were getting like enhanced, like powered up with by Obito, and I don't think that that's the case. Okay. But then yeah, here comes Roshi again. Also, kind of interesting to note that with this tail and everything, his design kind of looks a bit like Himimaro when he's in his like quote unquote like dinosaur looking form, when he's in his like Curse Mark 2 state. It's an interesting little visual callback. But of course, here's another instance of Naruto getting harmed by Roshi. And you could look at this as a feat or an anti-feat or a little bit of both, because on the one hand, Naruto is able to endure the pain of this and then immediately like retaliate with his Rasengan and accomplish get close to accomplishing his objective. But also he's experiencing pain from doing this. So what do we make of this? Well, Naruto is capable of being harmed by multiple Jinchuriki attacks. We've seen Utakata do it before. It was implied that Yugito could do it, and it's implied that, well, it's very clear that Roshi can do it as well. But notice also that it doesn't seem that he has lasting damage on his face from those scorch marks. So could that be the fact that he's... Well, I think it is likely that it's just his insane, like, regeneration that's kind of kicking in. Like, he's already healed from that in all likelihood. So it gets kind of... It's so ridiculous. I love this. It gets kind of tricky to, like, scale this because he's getting hurt, but then he's immediately getting better. And then a lot of the attacks that are getting used here are only used once in the whole series, and they're used here against this same person. And so it's like, well, where do you go with any of this? It's really cool to read through in and of itself, and you learn a lot about the characters and about like durability in general, I think, from just going through it. But then extrapolating out from here to other fights is a little challenging because of how little we know about these other characters. Worth noting, though, that Naruto gets kicked under the chin, basically, and so already we don't see any scorch marks if they're already still left. Gets kicked in the chin, pushed back. He says "ung" and gets up and says "ow," and his chin is hurt. So these people are capable of hurting him, but also he's not been like significantly injured as far as I can tell. And now we get to the Yugito thing, and I'll mention the hand seal, the mudra thing as well. This is such an awesome panel. I love this shit. Naruto's able to hold on and withstand the force, although he's probably like wrapped up in some of Killer Bee's tentacles as well. there's the whole forest. And then, so this is when he uses the sealing jutsu, tries to restrain them. They start to solidify. But then, yeah, Obito comes out of the ground and he's doing this hand sign. And right as he does this hand sign, they all transform. And that, I mean, like, we can go through and look at other examples of that. Yeah, what we talked about previously is that same hand sign is used for other things like Datara controlling the explosions of his clay bombs and stuff like that. So my interpretation is that, I mean, especially since it's like directly connected, right? He does this, then they immediately transform. I think that the clear implication here is that he's triggering their transformation deliberately, right? Like, it's not, they didn't all just coordinate with one another and decide spontaneously to do this as mute, uncommunicative Edo Tensei. And Obito does specifically say go, and then they specifically start attacking. So they're listening to him. They're doing what he's saying. I can't believe after the fucking talking about this for 3 hours about hand signs and all that shit, I never noticed that Obito literally says go. That's so stupid. That's all I needed. But it was it's not like I felt like the time was wasted or anything. It was a lot of fun to go through all that. Something else I didn't notice is that the tails themselves have slightly, like, subtly different designs. A few of these characters, and Isobu has hands. Well, they're not literally hands, but they. Oh yeah. Okay, they look like hands over here, but they're more like fins or something like that. Whereas, some of the other characters have more. I think Chome's look a little bit more insect-like, for example, and the others kind of just look like regular. Standard tails or whatever. Spectre says, side note, the Han feat is off guard. Yeah, that's a good point, right? Like, so Naruto hadn't, like, raised up his arms, which, you know, good point. We're going to talk about that here too. Naruto hadn't really raised up his arms to the point where he was actively defending against the incoming attack the way he did against the Raikage, or the way that he's doing here. So a blow to the chin should be hurting him even more, right, than something like this or something like what the Raikage did. But now we've kind of come full circle, because we're finally talking about Naruto facing off against the Jinchuriki, including Yugito in her V2 state. And what happens here is that Naruto gets hit by a bug bite attack from Chome, I think it is, and he successfully seems to block against it. And then while he is actively blocking, Yugito comes in from above. You can follow the lines of her movement. She kind of jumps in over here and then over here to the left, and then hits him on the side of his fucking head with a slashing cat claw attack, and then knocks him down. And so I always forget this guy's name. Saiken manages to use Leech Slip to get out of the way, and then Isobu comes in from behind, smacks him, uses the Coral Palm. So he does say arg here. He does get hit. He does get smacked down. That's true. But then he also says wah here, like another expression of pain, and gets pushed off and shunted down onto the ground. B manages to catch him before he hits the ground. He says ung. So the impact with the ground, with the B's hand rather, is causing him some amount of like discomfort as well. And then after all of that, Guy shows up, and Guy smacks him in the back with his elbow, breaks apart the Coral Palm, to which Naruto also says erg. And then after all of that, let's look at how Naruto is doing after all of that, right? He's fine. As far as we know, he has no lasting damage. Now, he could have lasting damage underneath the cloak, but he just got hit in the jaw, and he's talking, and he doesn't have any like wounds on his jaw. He's not rubbing it or anything like that. He doesn't seem to have any burning or scorch marks. He doesn't seem to have any lacerations from Yugito's claw or anything like that. The one thing he does, and like this is something I wish I had the scans for, I'm not sure where it happens, but a couple of times later in the war, he winds up using Rasengan, and then he like dislocates his shoulder, and then Hinata, I think, like pops it back in with Gentle Fist or something like that. So you could potentially say that Utakata's attack with the bubble did lasting damage to him, because later on we get a callback to it, and his shoulder gets fucked up and he has to get it repaired. But everything else just seems to have been negated, right? So there's this is one thing I should also mention too, just to be fair, is that Naruto does manage to withstand the did I skip past it? This probably shows it well enough. Naruto manages to withstand the crushing force from Son Goku's jaws, and on the one hand you could say that's lifting strength. I mean, it sort of is. I mean, it's lifting strength to the extent that he's using his own physical strength to keep his jaws open. But when this happens here, Naruto is, I guess, guarding against it, right? He's using the like his feet and his hands to actively shield against the attack, but he's capable of withstanding this attack, its crushing jaw attack from a Biju. So what do we do with all that? What do we do with all that data? Oh, Spectre says it's around 6:15. Let me take a look. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay, 6:15. Oh yeah, this looks right. Damn, it's so brutal. Honestly, I think we kind of needed that. We needed a little bit of, what's the term for it? I mean, not brutality so much as just well, then we also have this happening. But we needed something that was a little bit more, needs some consequences, something to, it's a fucking war. It's a world war, essentially. And it should feel dire. 6:17? Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, when he's, that's really cool with that. Oh yeah, so my shoulder's dislocated again. So I think there's another time that it happens previously, but this is all we need to kind of corroborate that. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, and Hinata just fixes it, and so again, like, we never hear him say my shoulder is fucked up because that goddamn bubble bastard like ruined my day. But the implication, I mean, like, out of all of the injuries that he, wait, hang on a second. Is that, okay, so it's his left, is it even the same shoulder? Like, that's an important thing to note. Okay, so this is his left shoulder. Am I seeing that right? Yeah, that's his right hand. This is left hand. So let's go back and see if it actually, oh, damn it, this is my mouse up. If it actually was the correct shoulder. Anyway, this is not necessarily like a crucial point or anything. I'm trying to see if I can identify lasting damage that was done to him that stuck with him from the other Jinchuriki. And no, it's actually not. It's his right shoulder. Right? Because yeah, this is his head, this is his shoulder, and this is his arm extending up to the right. And then when he gets blasted back, he goes down like this. So I think the explosion is sending his arm down like that, which means that it's his right shoulder. And then over here, it's his left shoulder. So it's not even the same thing. It might just be that he has like a recurring injury or like recurring strain from using the big fucking heavy ass like Rasen shurikens over and over again, something like that. I don't remember when he dislocates his shoulder previously, but yeah, unless he has some other statement like that, I don't think he took any like lasting tangible damage from his interactions with the Jinchuriki overall. So I think my initial response to what Kakuzu and Holidays was saying was that I was like maybe a little bit too glib about being like, well, Naruto got hit by he got hurt by like tripping and falling, and so his durability is just kind of bad. And so even if he did, oh, here we go, even if he did get hurt by Yugito, that's not necessarily like a big feat for Yugito, because KCM Naruto's durability isn't all that great because he gets hurt by relatively minor things. But if you actually go through and look at how he progresses and the way in which he manages to gain better control of KCM, over the several chapters that we see him do so, I think it becomes pretty clear that he is pretty durable. He's definitely, I don't know if he's as durable as he is when he's in Sage mode. I don't know if we see him have feats that are that exceptional, but he is durable enough as long as he's blocking to be able to guard against a punch from the Raikage, who's stated to have Biju levels of chakra, multiple punches actually. He's durable enough to be able to, go up against the Jinchuriki and Biju and in various forms and take multiple attacks and get hurt by them, but still recover from them. And then it becomes a question of whether or not is he actually getting injured and then just recovering super, super fast, or is he actually just completely negating the damage apart from like a little bit of superficial stuff that just goes away. Like when Naruto gets blown up by that attack from Utakata, is he actually like, is his shoulder, are his bones getting damaged? Is his flesh getting damaged? Is his skin getting damaged? Like, is he actually taking damage from the attack, or does it just hurt him and then does he recover? I personally think, as much as like I know this is weighting the arguments against like pain, and I tend to support pain in debates on that subject, but I think it's actually more interesting if we just say that Naruto is getting hurt by all these attacks and then he's just regenerating from them. It makes scaling and stuff like that a little bit tricky, because how do you isolate how much damage was done if it's all just getting regenerated from immediately thereafter? But it does allow for, it's more interesting than saying that like Naruto is just so durable that he just negates all of these attacks. And it doesn't seem to be the case either. It doesn't seem to be the case for him emotionally. Like, it doesn't seem to be the case for him in terms of his pain response, in terms of what Killer B thinks about the situation, how he's reacting to. So yeah, I think KCM Naruto can consistently be damaged to a minor extent by these characters. But it is minor, and he's either capable of enduring it like he does with Roshi's like fire attack, or recovering from it super, super fast, to the point that I guess any scaling change then based off of Yugito damaging him is like, well, yeah, all the Jinchuriki for the most part managed to hurt him, and then he's fine after he's being hurt. So Yugito managing to hurt him and then him being fine after he gets hurt is not necessarily a super impressive feat for Yugito in and of itself, especially since, as you pointed out, Spectre pointed out about him getting hit by Roshi, or whoever, like Han kicking him, right? Like, he was off guard, and that attack, like, let's just look at that one more time, right? Naruto gets, or did I just pass it already? Oh, no, it was here. Yeah, so Naruto gets hit in the fucking chin by Han, and he says, ouch, and he rubs his chin, but then he's okay. And now, after that, so after already sustaining damage, he's no longer at the same level of chakra, the same level of, I don't know, he's already taken a hit. Maybe that doesn't affect him at all, but, like, factually, he has already taken a hit. Now, he successfully blocks Chomei's bug bite, and then he gets hit again in the head by cat claws, like on the side of the head, similarly to what happened previously with Han. But then, after he gets hit by another attack, he then gets up and he's fine after he gets like saved by Guy. So I don't know. I think trying to be as fair and as complete as possible with my assessment on this, my opinion is that Naruto is pretty damn durable in this state, but he's not like, metal weapons aren't just like breaking on his skin like Kunai did on Sasuke's Susanoo. He's capable of receiving damage from both taijutsu and ninjutsu, but then he's also capable of responding to that by getting back up and recovering very quickly. Whatever damage he seems to have sustained seems to be very minor, so he's responding in pain, he's verbally shouting, he's indicating like emotionally that he is in pain. But that pain doesn't seem to be correlated with any lasting major injuries. So, despite the fact that Yugito can elicit a pain response from him, she doesn't seem to be able to do any major injuries, at least not more so than any of the other characters there. The most effective thing seems to be Coral Palm, or actually Utakata's Bubble Jutsu seems to hurt him the most. And so, insofar as that scales back to Kakuzu, I'm not sure how much data it actually gives us to work with. I think that's probably the best summary I can give. Spectre says, Han can burn Naruto with his cloak. Yep, that's true. And Roshi hurts Naruto, but that's off guard. Yep, that's also true. So, I mean, that just kind of goes to support the notion that being on guard, both in terms of, like, your mental awareness, as well as your overall, like, not durability, like, the way that you're, like, blocking and shielding against attacks, that all of that stuff definitely plays a major role in determining, like, how much damage you take. It's a big part of it. But at the end of the day, I don't really know what else to say about Naruto's like where to scale from this. But I think it's been a very fun exercise. It's been like entertaining to kind of go through and learn about it and see where everything sits. I think I'm gonna take a 5-minute, well, probably less than that, just a couple of minutes of a break to grab some water, and then let me know if you have any other questions or comments or anything you'd like me to address. Otherwise, I might go back and look at the Brutal Honesty video for a little bit. Probably going to keep going until 5 p.m. and round out a nice 3-hour time slot. But of course, I'm happy to continue talking about any of this or look at any other scenes. Just let me know what you think, and I'll be back soon. Okay, almost ready here. Okay. Thanks for your patience there. Spectre says, my conclusion is just that KCM 1 Naruto scales above the Jinchuriki when going all out. Well, I'm not sure if I agree with that, just because he seems to be getting pushed back a lot by them. Like, once he gets to KCM 2, absolutely. But, like, Killer B does have to kind of take him out of the bubbles, right? And yank him away. And then Killer B is actively carrying him when they're running away from, damn it, why am I spacing on her name? From Yugito, right? That's something that's worth talking about. If you're ever talking about, like, somebody says that Yugito scales to KCM1 Naruto in speed because she was able to keep up with them. It's sort of technically true, because Killer B and Naruto were moving, and Yugito also manages to move with them. But if you break that statement down into, like, Yugito is capable of outpacing Killer B or moving alongside him, and also Yugito is capable of outpacing / moving alongside Naruto, you just have to keep in mind that Naruto himself was not actually moving here. So if you believe that, say, like, I think there's some arguments saying that Naruto in KCM, when he's going all out, you know, he could be faster than Killer B potentially. What literally happens here is that One-Tail Yugito manages to take a more direct route towards where Naruto is being pulled by Two-Tail's Killer B and intercept them and clash with them. Any statements to the effect that Yugito just outpaces KCM1 Naruto doesn't really fit, in my opinion. But that being said, like, my personal reading of this is that Naruto is kind of on the back foot against the Jinchuriki as a squad, that he could potentially win one-on-one engagements with them, though. But that's just based on the fact that he seems to be getting pressed back. But I guess that would mean that he's not going all out, and if you're saying you're talking about him going all out, then maybe I just don't understand. So yeah, please feel free to elaborate on that. Hopefully I haven't, like, misrepresented your point or anything. Oh, Spectre says go to 5, 6, 7. You can see Naruto blocking attacks from V2 Saiken. Okay. Must have missed that. Thank you. Let's see, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So here we have all the Jinchuriki rushing towards them. Kakashi and... Well, here's another thing too, like... Granted, this is a tail swipe and not a slash, like a claw slash, but it's worth noting that Kakashi and Guy get smacked by... I can't tell which one this is, I guess I could count the tails. But they get smacked back and they are also fine. They don't have their arms broken or anything like that, right? So I guess if you really wanted to create like a big picture of the durability of all these different characters, you could make like a flowchart or something that says, okay, so Kakashi is able to withstand an attack from this character, and then what are Kakashi's other durability feats? And then let's look at Guy. What are Guy's other durability feats? And then basically make a grid and then find a way to kind of connect all those things together. That's a lot of effort. I actually thought about suggesting this. I don't know like who would be interested, but to me, the way that my brain works anyway, I think I will start making like a Miro or something like that. Miro's like a flowchart program if you're not familiar with it. It's like a free online flowchart thing. And just starting to map things out, like Naruto's durability is equal to this, less than that, etc., etc. And then I can like create, like build off of those characters and start to build like a chain of references, because that might be helpful in creating like a map for how all these characters connect to one another. In a perfect world, I'm not that great at like coding or anything, but I wish I could write some sort of software that would let you write all those things out and then click on a given character, and then all of the connections that that character has to other characters would come up, and you could see like a reference grid of all of the different feats, and you could just add to that over time. So you could click on like Obito, and that would bring up Obito's fight with Konan, Obito's fight when he was a kid with Minato and stuff like that. And then if you clicked on the kid fight, then it would bring up Minato's references, like his fights in the war, his fight in the one shot, etc., against Kurama. So, but I think this is the this is cool. So he's outright just no diff blocking an attack with his chakra arm. That's great. He doesn't seem to be upset by that at all. So just like negates it. Yeah, cool. I think that's the one you were referring to, right? If so, that's definitely a feat. Inspector says also if you go to 569, you can see KCM1 Naruto holding back full transformation Son Goku, and then says I'm gonna push this mode to the max. Oh, that's right. He says like this mode doesn't last very long, but I'm still gonna push it to its limit or something like that. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Let's go take a look. When he's ripping out the chakra rod or something. Yeah, just scanning through here to see if I missed anything, but yeah. Oh yeah, with this one, with all the different arms and stuff. I can't keep this mode up for too long. I'm gonna push it to the max though. Okay, so you're saying that like you think if he, like hypothetically, if he could sustain this level of force and chakra output indefinitely over the course of the fight, you think he could take on the 6 base Jinchuriki, V1 Jinchuriki on his own? I mean, if he starts throwing like Rasen Shuriken and Planet Rasengan and stuff like that all over the place, then I guess it's more complicated if they're Edo Tensei. But if we would just assume that they're not, like they're alive and they're all bloodlusted, and they don't all go Biju mode right away, maybe. Yep, it was that one. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you sharing that. Cool. So I think that's it. I'm just gonna check my notes here real quick, and unless there's anything else that I missed, I might just spend a little bit of time going over that noodles video, because some of it is relevant to what we talked about. Just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay. So, got the Obito head clash thing, Son Goku. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think we went over everything I wanted to talk about. Spectre then says, probably if they're all in base. Also, it's a good thing to note that Naruto does have multiple clones across the battlefield, so you could say he's dividing up his chakra. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, at the very least, like, he has a certain amount of Kurama chakra that he has stored up, and then he expends that when he sends his clones. Oh, wait. There's one other thing. This is not a big deal, but since I just remembered it. Thought for sure I had it up. 1 second. 562. There we go. Oh yeah, so this is silly, but one of Naruto's clones I think gets tripped up by gets tripped up by two-tone Zetsu, or like Black plus Zetsu, whatever you want to refer to this version of him as. And I don't know, like, whatever. I don't feel the need to like nitpick about this too much or anything, but this is one of those things where it's like, if you apply a certain kind of power scaling perspective to it, it gets really silly. But if you just allow for a little bit of kind of creative liberty, it's not that big of a deal at all. But you could make the argument that like Naruto moving this being this powerful in this state at this time, that he should not be able to be restrained by like a tree limb. That this tree limb doesn't look particularly thick or anything. It's just, you know, a vine essentially that's coiling around him. Like, why does he not have the physical strength? If this motherfucker has the physical strength to restrain like a Biju chomping down on him, then why does he also not have the strength to just like get away from a little piece of a vine, right? Like, why is he not ripping through that? And then I guess you could be like, oh, well, he sprained his ankle before, and so he's just weak over here. He was caught off guard, like thrown off balance or something like that. So, like, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't think we really need to overanalyze this, but it is kind of funny, right? Like, this guy goes from, like, getting his foot stuck and getting a little owie and having to have somebody, like, bandage his bandage his foot, give him a splint, to then immediately going up against the Raikage and against Itachi and Nagato, and then he faces this fucking guy and he trips and falls flat on his face, and then he goes from that to facing off against the Jinchuriki and the Biju. It's like there's some goofiness in the feats here. Again, like, it's like whatever, it's not a big deal, but it's kind of funny. Spectre says, I just chalked that up to that being a clone and less experienced Naruto. Yeah, that's fair. That's fine. Also, these white Zetsu have been amped by Hashirama cells. Another thing to note, black Zetsu is a monster and he just always holds back until he kills Madara. Well, that's a whole other thing too, right? That's something that I'd love to talk about at some point. I really need to think about it some more. Because if you just apply like the power scaling, like deductive reasoning or whatever, like, or whatever the logical syllogism would be called, to the idea that Madara scales above like everybody else when he's Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and he's like the strongest character in the series at that point, and then Black Zetsu has the AP to destroy or how can I put this? Like, Edo Madara was cutting down mountains easily in his Susanoo, and Kyuubi Jinchuriki 3-eyed Madara is way, way stronger than that. So his DC would scale way higher than that. So anybody who has the AP to damage or kill him would have an AP that also scales like really high above that. So probably like continental or something, maybe higher. Like, I haven't done the math or anything like that, but insanely high. If you just go by that like chain of logic. Another way to interpret it, again, is that people who are not having their guard up, who aren't molding chakra to use for defenses, are still just not all that durable. So yeah, it's impressive for Black Zetsu to push his arm through Madara's chest. It was also impressive for like Kakashi to push his arm through Kakuzu's chest, right? But he attacked Kakuzu, or maybe like it's weird because that's the right Kiri, but hopefully you can see the analogy, right? Like, it's reasonable for characters of any amount of shinobi skill and training and power and chakra to be able to inflict grievous wounds like that on people just at a baseline. And so maybe this isn't some insane feat for Black Zetsu. Maybe it was literally Madara, just like every other human being, doesn't have all that insane base durability, and as a result, Black Zetsu's feat isn't all that impressive. Now, I don't know if that actually makes any sense. Everything I said could just be bullshit, because if we go through and look at Madara's feats, like, I know that, like, Yugito takes that massive, like, roiling, respawning massive paper bombs, and just, like, kind of sits there and eats it, and isn't hurt by it at all. He takes that massive, like, Amaterasu Rasen Shuriken and sits there and eats it and isn't fazed by that at all. So it could very well be that characters around that level do have insane durability, so this is a massive feat for Black Zetsu. Or just that our understanding of durability in this series doesn't follow, like, the neat, tidy, scheduled math of a power scaling setup, right? Not everything has to fall into these, like, perfectly ordained categories. There can be some flexibility, there can be some inconsistency, and maybe durability is just not, like, we can't necessarily put everything into these, like, neat little boxes when we read the series as a whole. Something like that. I'm definitely not prepared to debate that shit or anything like that. But it's just, I don't know, like, it seems really, really weird. There's something that kind of, like, sets off an alarm bell in my head about it, and I want to look into it more. Spectre says Black Zetsu is weird because he's faster than Minato, but Zetsu also says like, Minato and Kakashi will kill me if I let go of Obito's body. Yeah, I always interpreted that as, like, he was not going to be able to outpace them. If he let go, he was just going to die. Also for Black Zetsu killing Madara, he's attached to Obito's body, which has 6 paths chakra, and Zetsu gets his abilities from whoever he's attached to. Oh, okay. So if that's the case, then it's more about like Naruto's Senjutsu enhanced Rasengan that he uses on Yugito, where he teleports to him with Tobirama, doesn't actually need to have like super high AP. In fact, it can have exponentially lower AP than the Amaterasu Rasengan or Rasen Shuriken thing, because it has Senjutsu chakra in it, and it like negates his Obito's defenses. So if that's what you're saying, then that would make more sense. Like he essentially has a hack, for lack of a better word, that just gets past Madara's durability and just messes him up. I actually, just personally, I like that better because it seems like cleaner, I guess. Like a Occam's razor sort of thing. Also for Black Zetsu killing, oh, yeah, I already said that. Zetsu is just also blatantly off-guarding Madara. Yes, exactly. Like Madara thinks Zetsu is his friend, so he's not expecting Zetsu to come back and stab him. Yes. Yep. Well, I could say that like if Madara's skin was made out of diamonds, or made out of diamond or something like that, or let's stay in universe. Say Madara had like a diamond morph that was 100 times stronger than Kakuzu's, and like Black Zetsu's attack potency was equivalent to like, I don't know, Kid Choji or Kid Konohamaru. It's a better example, right? It wouldn't matter at all that it was a surprise attack, if the amount of damage versus armor is just so vastly different that there's no physical possible way for him to get through. But I don't think that that's what's happening, especially now that you've brought up that point about the Sage of Six Paths chakra being involved. I think there's a bit more nuance to it than that. Like if Madara was facing Black Zetsu and Madara raised up his arms to like shield against his attack like Naruto did against Raikage, he'd probably be able to block it, right? Would you agree with that? So, I got about 20 minutes left or so. I still think it's worth talking about the Brutal Honesty video a little bit before I sign off. I won't get too deep into it, but making a little progress every stream, and thinking about how it's connected to our overall durability conversation, I think makes sense. It'd be fun to just go over it a little bit. Let me put a timestamp down here, so... Spectre says, yeah, if he was on guards, that's who's never landing a hit. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I'm curious if you think if he did land a hit to a on guard Madara who did that thing where he like, obviously I'm not on camera right now, but like he crossed his arms in a T the way that Naruto did against the Raikage. If you think that like defensive posture, or even like if he's boxing, you know, if you're boxing, you put like your arms up and like your knuckles towards the top of your head and you're like guarding like that. Do you think Black Zetsu punching a guarding Madara like that would get through it as well? I don't think so. Or maybe that's what you're saying. Sorry if I'm just making you repeat yourself. So I think we were around here last time. It was like 1818 or something like that. Yeah, because we were talking about like Yugito blowing up the compound and how that connects to the durability of whether or not the fireball Gyoen Hoka fire breath attack that she used could potentially have blown up the rock spire behind the village. So basically like this thing over here. And I think the argument that was made was that it cannot do so because, quote unquote, we only saw it blow up this building and we didn't see it blow up a building or like a spire of that size, and therefore it couldn't. And my rebuttal to that, or, you know, maybe you disagree, attempted rebuttal, whatever, is that the fact that we didn't see it do that doesn't mean that it couldn't. But more to the point, I was sort of finding that without doing an actual calc of the size of either of these objects, without saying like, well, how big is this building exactly? How big is the underground part of the complex that they were in? How big is this spire? Like, is it really... I didn't feel like it was really fair of us to come to that conclusion without doing a little bit more homework, essentially. And as for the durability, I think it was mostly talking about like Kakashi and stuff, which we covered in the previous stream. So I think we can move on. Spectre says, I don't think so either. Yeah, okay. I think we're probably in agreement about that then. By the way, for folks who are new, who would like some context for this video that we're talking about. So this is a video by YouTuber Noodles, who does a lot of Naruto power scaling related stuff. You folks are probably familiar if you've come here from checking out my Itachi versus Pain video, which thank you again for all the support on that. It's been absolutely amazing. I'm really grateful for that. That video was specifically an analysis of the debate between Noodles and Swag Kage, talking about Itachi versus Pain. And so initially, when I started streaming a couple of months ago, I was talking about another Noodles debate that he did with somebody called Weeaboo Warrior, another YouTuber who does a lot of great power scaling and ranking and analysis content across a variety of different series, so definitely check him out as well. And that particular debate was about Pain versus Kakuzu, and a lot of the arguments that came up in that debate were also present in this video from a couple of years ago. So we've been kind of talking about both of them, kind of trading off, and really my goal here is to just listen to the arguments that are being made and try to point out some issues with the way that they're being framed, the way that certain evidence is being presented or not presented, maybe inconsistencies with some of the arguments. I think a lot of the arguments made are kind of interesting, or else we wouldn't be, talking about them consistently like years later. They're interesting, but there's a lot of mistakes that unfortunately wind up lead to spreading misinformation, and I'd like to try to understand them better and to share that understanding. Of course, if you disagree with anything I say, please feel free to challenge me, chime in, and disagree. Like, that's absolutely encouraged. But with that being said, go check out Noodle's channel. Go watch the video for yourselves if you haven't already. Like, I'm obviously going to be stopping it and interrupting it, and there's always a risk, however unintentional, that I wind up like cutting something off or misrepresenting it. So go see the stuff yourself in context if you're interested. Show your support, and then we can dive into the video. We're picking up around the 18-15 minute mark, and we're just gonna kind of start and stop and see how it goes.
Only thing ever shown by the Bichu to ever cause this much destruction is the Bichu bomb. So for Kakuzu to say that he doesn't believe physical attacks will work on him means Kakuzu believes even Bichu bombs don't work on him.
There's a couple of interesting things to address right there. The first is the implication that the Bichu bomb counts as a physical attack. Now, it may actually be a physical attack. We might discuss it together and decide that that is the case. But when Kakuzu talks to Shikamaru about the attacks that he's supposedly like impervious to or whatever, he specifically refers to, or the attacks that we see represented are like slashing attacks, piercing attacks, like small grade explosions, things of that nature. Let's see if I can pull up the exact panel for context. Actually, it's a few chapters ahead. And so the Biju Bomb is a ultra compressed ball of chakra that's a combination of positive and negative chakra that's then generating a massive explosion. I don't think, like, personally, it's fair to put that in the same category of like a kunai and a paper bomb, or even like a fat kid slamming into you at incredibly high speeds, or any of that shit. Now, it's possible that we could that we would wind up coming to that conclusion. But the problem here is we also have to consider what Kakuzu himself considers to be a physical attack, right? So here's what we see. Kakuzu gets hit by Spiked Human Juggernaut and maybe Hidan Scythe, probably not. Like, Hidan was coming at him, so I think that was probably part of his defensive calculation, but I don't think Hidan hit him. I think it was just Choji that hit him, right? And so we see Choji hit him. We get this little flashback of the Paper Bomb Kunai, and this little flashback of Raido's Ebony Blade glancing against the side of his head. And based on those three things, Shikamaru says he's got some jutsu that lets him harden his body. That's his ability. And then Kakuzu says, good eye, it's true, physical attacks are virtually useless against me. So as far as we know, based on Kakuzu's opinion, based on Shikamaru's assessment, these are the sorts of things that count as physical attacks. These three. There's also the feat of Kakuzu punching the fire temple door, which is not referenced here, but it's the same idea. Like, he's using Diamond Morph to harden his arm or hand or both, and then he's punching through this heavy steel door with the sealing jutsu on it. You could probably say that's a physical attack as well. I mean, it literally is. So no problem there. But then extrapolating that to a Biju Bomb is a very big leap. And so unless we can safely say that Kakuzu considers a Biju Bomb to be a physical attack, then I don't think we can safely cling to that statement, so to speak. Spectre then says, I'm not going to lie, there's no proof Kakuzu could survive a Tail Beast Bomb, even with the Diamond Armor. It's impossible to assert a Biju Bomb has ever hit Kakuzu. Yeah. The issue that you're, I would agree with that take. I think the issue here is that the fight happened entirely off screen. So what Noodles is trying to do is he's trying to say, okay, we have a massive explosion in the background. That explosion, to his interpretation, couldn't have been caused by anything other than a Biju Bomb. The reasoning is that the only thing we see, the only thing that we have seen Jinchuriki do that can do that is Biju Bombs, which I was going to get to that later, but we can just talk about it now. The fact that we haven't actually seen other characters have attacks on that scale doesn't mean that they don't. You know, we're talking about 9, let's just say 8, because Kurama, I guess, sort of kind of doesn't count because he's in Naruto. It's a bit of a special exception, but we can come back to that later. Or actually, let me rephrase that. It's not that Naruto and Kurama don't count. It's that we stick with Naruto and Kurama the whole series, and so we know what his jutsu output is and what he's capable of. But for most of the other Jinchuriki, we see very, very little of what they can actually do. We don't spend hardly any time with them. The anime expands on things and shows us fights with them, but for the most part, most of their jutsu, they could have massive, vast arsenals of incredibly destructive jutsu that we just don't ever see. So it's just an assumption to say that because we don't see them do anything that's Biju Bomb tier, then they just don't have anything that's Biju Bomb tier. It's also worth noting that even if you think the Biju Bomb, the destruction in the background, was caused by Yugito, which it could have potentially been caused by Kakuzu himself, but we can talk about that in a second. But even if you don't think that the destruction in the background was caused by Kakuzu, you think it was caused by a Biju Bomb specifically, I mean, look at the amount of damage that was done, right? In order to calc the size of the Biju Bomb, you have to take into account that it's this size. This is the size of the explosion that was actually generated. It didn't affect the mountains in the background, so it didn't extend all the way back there. So if we want to scale that Biju Bomb, compare it to the ones that are used in the war, where they're blowing up mountains in all directions, and then compare that to this. Does this really scale to that? And if not, then really the point that we have to consider is not whether or not Yugito categorically used a Biju Bomb. It's whatever attack she used, what was the actual size, AP, and DC of that attack? If it was a Biju Bomb, if it was a Fire Breath attack, if it was some other shit that we'd never even seen, what was the actual energy output of that attack? And then how do we make that concrete so that we can bring it back to the discussion? And at the moment, I think the way to do it would be to try to get a calc for the size of this quote-unquote mountain, rock spire, whatever you want to call it, and then try to get a size calc for the amount of energy that would be required to do this, and then maybe you can extrapolate that if this was a circular attack, it would have gone out like this in a circle, and then you could kind of go from there. But the way that, again, this is the colored manga, I'm not sure if it's entirely accurate, but the way that this kind of looks like, it looks like this could have been a Fire Breath attack, potentially, that if you launch it from the center, and then the heat radiates outward like that, and we know that the heat can break through rock and stuff like that. It's possible. It's possible it was a Biju Bomb. But there's a whole lot of fucking possibilities here that haven't been, to my mind, thoroughly or fairly evaluated. And a lot of assumptions that are kind of leading to a misunderstanding, I think. So, it's possible. It is possible, but there's a lot of extra homework that would need to be done here to kind of prove it, and I'm very skeptical of that. Spectre says, also, Radio's Black Blade is able to hurt Kakuzu with the diamond armor. Choji's attack causes smoke to come from his body, and there are scuff marks on his body. Oh, let me take a look at that. I never noticed that. Let's see. Do you mean, like... I'm not quite seeing him. He actually looks pretty clean. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of damage to his body or to his clothing. Maybe like here, like the steam coming off of him and stuff like that. It could be, but I mean his clothing looks pretty undamaged, which goes back to our discussion previously about whether or not clothing represents like damage and vulnerability and stuff like that. I'm not quite seeing that, but I could just be missing something. Spectre says, if he's talking about the building blowing up, that's from the giant fireball Yugito shoots. Yeah, it's from her, like, cat breath. I think it's called cat flame roaring fire, or BON Hoka. But yeah, she fires that when she's, like, inside underground in that facility, and then it blows up the underground and, like, spews outward and blows up the top of that building too, right? If he's talking about the giant carve in the mountain, we don't know what's that from. It could be from a Bichu bomb, or it could have been from a fireball. It could have been already been there. It's easier to notice in the black and white. The color makes it harder to notice. Oh, okay, sure. See. The 314? Or, no, 333. That's good. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, I just started, I usually pull from the colored manga for the thumbnails, and then I just kind of kept on that. But I usually go to the black and white, because I think it's usually more accurate, right? But oh, you mean like this stuff over here? These scuffs? It still looks pretty clean to me. But I think you're right, it's a little bit more pronounced with that visual effect and all that. Yeah, so, I mean, feel free to check out his video to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting him or anything like that. But my understanding of the argument was basically that, like, Yugito... Let me pull up the black and white as well here. That, so, Yugito, at some point in the series... I'm trying to make it into a syllogism, right? Like... Yugito at some point in the series has demonstrated herself to be capable of using Biju bombs. We see her do that during the war. She has a fight with Kakuzu and Hidan. Over the course of that fight, we see that this rock spire in the background winds up getting destroyed. The size of the amount of destruction that is done to the rock spire to destroy it, to carve that hole in it, so to speak, is significant, and it is so significant that it must have been caused by a very high level jutsu. Yugito is a user of high level jutsu such as a Biju bomb. We don't see her use any other jutsu that are that high level, capable of doing that much destruction, that high DC, is the argument that's being made. Therefore, she must have used a Biju bomb here because she has no other abilities that would allow her to do this here. And if that's the case, then Kakuzu demonstrably must have at least seen a single Biju bomb. And if Kakuzu has seen a Biju bomb and he is saying that physical attacks cannot hurt me, then he must have seen the Biju bomb, said that is a physical attack, come to the conclusion that it could not hurt him, and then going back to the Shikamaru fight, be telling Shikamaru, hey, just so you know, physical attacks, in parentheses, including Biju bombs, but I'm not going to say that out loud, cannot hurt me at all. So that's the whole argument here, as far as I understand it. And my contention with that, well, I have a bunch of contentions with that, but the main thing is just like, okay, then prove the fire breath attack can't do that, and then also prove that Yugito has no other jutsu in her arsenal that can do that. And then also prove that Kakuzu can't do that. Because I know that, like, Kakuzu and Holidays, with apologies to Kakuzu and Holidays, I still think that there's a possibility that Kakuzu, by combining one of his like his 5 different fucking nature transformations, there may be some combination of jutsu that he has that will yield this amount of destructive force. Now, blowing up an entire ass mountain in the background, maybe not. But I don't consider this to be the same as a full mountain. I don't think this, especially since this is in the background, this cannot by definition be the same size as this. And if we look back up here, now, granted, these are some assumptions that would need to be validated, but to me, it kind of looks like, there's a stairwell over here. There's windows. These windows need to be able to be looked out by, like, normal human beings, right? Assuming that these are buildings that people actually, like, use. So if we look at the height of this window and the height of these windows by comparison, we can get a sense for how far away this rock spire is from this building. Then we can get the height of this building, and then compare it to the height of this. And I really, really don't think it's fair to call this a mountain at all. It certainly doesn't count as a mountain for power scaling. Like, the term mountain level in power scaling refers to a mountain of a specific size, and this does not count as that. So the fact that Yugito destroyed, maybe if it was even her, or let me rephrase that, the fact that maybe a third of this not even a mountain was blown away, I don't personally find it controversial that Kakuzu could potentially have some jutsu that could do that, especially if he's combining his multiple nature transformations. Now, I don't have proof that that is the case, and I'm not saying that Kakuzu definitely did that, but I'm saying if you were to make the positive claim that Yugito definitely used a Biju bomb, and your evidence is that she must have used a Biju bomb because essentially nobody else there, herself included, could possibly do this, then you would need to evaluate their full kits to show that there's nothing in those kits that could actually do this. And I think that'll be very hard to do, seeing as we only see a fraction of Kakuzu's kit. We never see him use water. We never see him, like, the only enhanced jutsu that we see him use is, like, wind enhanced fire. He's got, like, 4 other types of enhancements that he could potentially do. Yugito could have any number of other jutsu that is available to her. The fire breath could potentially do this. And so you have this massive list of other possibilities that are completely unexplored, and until you, like, evaluate those and control for those variables, it's just not honest, or let's just say not accurate to say that, like, we've demonstrated that this is a Biju bomb. And then we get, after all of that, we then have to talk about whether or not the Biju bomb actually counts as a physical attack. And then after that, we need to talk about, okay, well, what is the actual size of the Biju bomb? Because if we're talking about Kakuzu versus Pain here, at the end of the day, maybe Kakuzu could take let's say Kakuzu could take, like, a 4-tails Biju bomb to the face from Naruto, right? Does that mean he could take a 6-tails Naruto Biju bomb to the face? Does that mean he could tank, like, a Killer Bee Biju bomb to the face? There's any number of variations of a Biju bomb that could potentially play a factor. And at the end of the day, if we're talking about Kakuzu versus Pain, what really matters is Pain's AP and Pain's DC. Can Pain do something that is equivalent or stronger to whatever destroyed this part of the mountain? In order to talk about that, we need to calculate the amount of damage that was done to the mountain and then look at Pain's feats. So, in summary, to put all that into perspective, this is just a lot of assumptions that don't really bring us anywhere, in my opinion. And it could be that all of the stuff he's saying is 100% true and accurate. That is a possibility. It's within the realm of possibility. But to demonstrate that, we need to do a lot of homework. And that's boring and tedious and annoying. And who wants to do that? I get it. But, like, if we don't, then we're never going to, like, figure this shit out, right? Anyway, so, yeah. That's it. And move on to something else now. Spectre says, the diamond armor has to have a limit. I would agree. If KCM2 and Naruto punched the diamond armor, it would break and Kakuzu would die. I think probably. I'm of the opinion that there are no, like, there's nothing in the series that I would consider to be worth assuming a no limits fallacy for. Like, how many times have we heard things being described as being unblockable or unavoidable or indefensible from or anything like that, and then they wind up getting like totally demolished? Like, something that I discussed on stream last time which let's just go over it again because it's fun. New no. Oh. Actually, I think they were talking about this in Sage's Discord recently. But like the sword of Nunoboko, right? Obito says, "This is the sword of the sage of six paths diving." Oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. It's supposed to be divine blade. They mistransliterated it as diving blade. Like this is the sword that Hagoromo uses to go snorkeling. No, it's his divine blade. And then he says it's a sword of the soul. The sage created this world using this blade. So a sage of six paths level character is wielding the sword that is like powered by souls, is shaped like a double helix, created the fucking world, and cannot be defeated. And then in that same chapter, they just break it, like a few pages later. So I am very skeptical of anything that claims to be like to have like no upper limit in terms of its scaling. And yes, you're correct. The diamond armor makes physical attacks almost useless, not entirely useless. So, yeah. At the end of the day, you can take that, even if you were to take that statement literally, when it comes to power scaling conversations, granted, I haven't been in like a million debates or anything. I'm not the authority on this, but my understanding is that you kind of have to go based off of the best feats that you do have. So regardless of what Kakuzu says, he could be being 100% honest, he could be earnest, he could think that he's correct and have reason to believe that, but what is the actual best feat that he has? When it comes to a debate or like a versus battle, you kind of have to go off of that, because otherwise you just wind up speculating that there's like no upper limit. It's like we were talking about Goku, right, a couple of weeks ago. And Goku has this tendency to hold back his power and to only kind of reveal it at the end, and to be a little bit shifty and a little bit like secretive with it. That's fine. So you could argue that even in some of the most dire situations that he was secretly always holding back a little bit more power. You could argue that, and that could make some amount of sense. That's fine. But if you're talking about a power scaling debate, it wouldn't really make sense for you to say like, okay, Goku could just solo anybody in the verse at any point, because, you know, you never know how much power that guy's hiding. It could be infinite. You could just not know, right? Like, you have to actually provide some feats. So my perspective on Kakuzu's durability is the same. Let's go off of the best things that he is actually capable of doing, his best feats, and let's examine his statements with some clarity and skepticism, and then see where that leads us. Spectre says, that's why I'm thinking like Choji probably did damage the armor, but just a little bit. That might be the case. I mean, you have to wonder, like, what is the steam coming off of him for, right? Like, is it just the friction between Choji's like rotation and Kakuzu's armor itself? But I also tend to think of it this way, that yeah, maybe the diamond armor can do that. Let's just grant that for a second and see where that leads us. Choji, the fact of the matter is that Kakuzu is described in the third data book as being shrewd, intelligent, and cunning, and sort of cold and calculated. He's 90 years old or something like that. He's been fighting as a bounty hunter for years and years, and he specifically is called out as having like a shrewd, high level of intellectual analysis in terms of analyzing other people's power. Because when it comes to his hearts, he evaluates the extent to which they are viable candidates for him to take their hearts. Like, he's not going to take some just like fodder heart, right? So basically, you have to look at a feat like this of him blocking a paper bomb kunai in a couple different ways. One is this character that we just described as being highly intelligent and analytical and experienced just sort of reflexively blocks a paper bomb kunai for whatever fucking reason. IDK, you know. Or that it's in character for him to see this attack coming and decide whether or not he wants to spend his chakra to defend against it. And if he makes that decision, then he's coming to that decision based on an assessment of the incoming damage. In other words, he's saying, this thing could potentially hurt me if I don't defend against it. Because otherwise he could just like swat it away, or he could dodge, or anything else, right? But he chooses to harden himself to it. He chooses to harden himself to Choji slamming into him. And so that leads to some interesting implications about what his base durability is. And then if you talk about a conversation about Kakuzu versus Pain, then okay, maybe you could somehow argue that Kakuzu manages to negate any of Pain's physical attacks using Diamond Morph. Okay, well, Diamond Morph hardens your body, and Kakuzu cannot move the parts of his body that are hardened while they are active. So as soon as his body is no longer hardened, now you have to demonstrate that Kakuzu's base durability scales above Pain's attacks. And if Kakuzu's base durability scales below a knife with a small grenade on the end of it, and Pain is leveling an entire village with a single attack, that creates some difficult implications for arguing like Kakuzu over Pain, right? Spectre says, by the way, the sword is tied to the will of the user, and in this case, Obito's will weakened. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I didn't get that from the interpretation. I was curious what he was saying about, like, it's the sword of the soul. But it makes sense. He's just like, yeah, that makes sense because Hagoromo's, like, the whole thing about, like, the creation of creation of all things or whatever is... It's called the practical application of the Izanagi, right? It's like you take your desire and your will and your quote-unquote dreams, and you use the Sage of Six Paths powers to manifest them into reality, if I understand it correctly. So it would make sense then that he would have access to his sword that was like some other kind of way of weaponizing that. That's cool. Yeah, I never quite understood that. Thank you for shedding some light on that. I appreciate that. The steam could be the friction, but the scuff marks make me think it was having an effect, even if slightly. It could very well be, yeah. And at the end of the day, and I know this is bound to ruffle some feathers, but like, Kakuzu saw Choji coming at him, and decided to use Diamond Morph and wall up against that attack. Kakuzu saw Yugito transform right in front of his face, saw her raise her paw, like Maratabi's paw, and slam it down on top of him, and didn't apparently use Diamond Morph in his hands to guard against that attack. So, Kakuzu did use Diamond Morph on Choji. Kakuzu didn't use Diamond Morph on Yugito. It's worth considering. I think at some point, Noodles in his video presented the fact that that Kakuzu defended against Yugito without using Diamond Morph as like a durability feat for Kakuzu. Which it is. It just sort of depends on how far Yugito's paw swipe scales, right? I think I'll go for like one more little section and then I'll wrap it up for today.
This is obviously supported by the statements earlier of Kakuzu not losing to Biju nor Jinchuriki, because if Biju could just vaporize him with a Biju bomb, why didn't they?
I mean, like, I don't find rhetorical questions to be particularly compelling arguments. Like, I think you should make an argument and make a positive statement and submit that forward and then try to substantiate it. Like, saying, why didn't this happen, is not really an argument as to why or how it did actually happen. And you could certainly think of other potential explanations. Like, for example, Yugito fired a Biju bomb, but Kakuzu dodged it. Yugito fired a Biju bomb at Hidan. Yugito fired a Biju bomb at Kakuzu, and he did absorb it as one potential viable explanation. But there's a bunch of other alternatives, and simply asking, well, why don't you, like, implying that your viewer should supply their own alternative explanations, and if they can't, then, like, your point stands. That's basically an argument from ignorance. It's not quite an argument from ignorance, but it's in that territory where you're basically saying, like, well, what is the evidence to the contrary of the thing that I just said? Oh, you don't have any? Okay, I guess my point stands. That's not really how that works. You have to kind of put in a little bit more effort to demonstrate the evidence for your own claim. So, also, there's this is a technicality, but he did say, like...
Because if a Biju could just vaporize him with a Biju bomb, why didn't they?
Yeah, if a Biju could just vaporize him with Biju bomb. Well, do we know that Biju can vaporize people with Biju bombs? Like, what characters have we actually seen get vaporized by Biju bombs in the series? Vaporization is a specific tier of power output, and you know, if you go through like the power scaling tiers, there's like fragmentation, violent fragmentation, pulverization, vaporization. There might be one more, right? So it's possible that a viable explanation is that Yugito hit Kakuzu, and it did enough damage to him to kill him, and he lost one of his hearts, and then he got back up and kept on fighting, and it didn't vaporize him. That would be, I'm not saying that literally happened, but I'm saying that's a model that allows you to explain how Kakuzu interacted with the Biju Bomb, and also explain how Kakuzu didn't get vaporized by that Biju Bomb. Nothing about this scene indicates that vaporization is a necessary outcome of this interaction whatsoever. So again, like, you would need to demonstrate why vaporization is even relevant here at all. Doctor says that's an argument from ignorance. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if that was like technically the correct phrasing there, but it did kind of seem that way, so I appreciate you clarifying that. Yugito didn't use the tail beast bombs, therefore they must not work. Exactly. I mean, like, why wouldn't they? Killer Bee didn't vaporize Suigetsu. Yeah, that's true. He just kind of tanked it, right? So he was knocked out by it, but he... Yeah, I was trying to think about this the other day. Like, if you go through the series, like, what is the best actual AP feat that a Biju Bomb has? And unfortunately, like, they do a lot of damage to the environment, but and it's implied that they are very valuable, like, wartime tools. But I think the best, the only one I could think of that actually dies to it is, like, Shikamaru's dad and whoever was with him in the, like, recon center, like the war coordination center, when the Ten Tails Biju Bomb hit them. It's possible, like, I don't know, like, I don't have a problem with the idea that one of the Edo Jinchuriki's Biju Bombs could wipe out a bunch of allied shinobi or anything like that. It's just, when it comes to, like, actual AP feats, Naruto's managed to piss off Orochimaru and nearly kill him. Well, that's a good one. Like, Naruto managed to get through the 3 Rashomon gates and then almost kill Orochimaru. That's one. Pain tanked the 6 Tails one that Naruto did. I don't think if there's any others. But anyway, I think, like, my main reaction to the video itself is basically just, I want more scaling, I want more data, I want more, like, actual relevant feats and stuff like that. You know? Maybe Suigetsu just has better durability than Kakuzu. Oh no, you said that and it summoned Kakuzu in Holidays from his slumber, slandering Kakuzu via Suigetsu. But maybe, I mean, I don't know. Suigetsu was in that, like, water transformation mode, and you could probably argue that, like, the water helped disperse the force or something like that. I don't know. There might be some kind of arguments there. But the thing, like, in an attempt to be fair here, like, it could actually literally be the case that Kakuzu could just walk through a Biju Bomb and be fine. Maybe that's something that is viable. But if that's the case, it hasn't actually been demonstrated or supported with evidence, and there's just all of these, like, stacked layers of assumptions that I'm finding are getting in the way of us actually, like, understanding this fight. That's my biggest concern here. Not with the possibility that there are characters who can resist Biju Bomb somewhere out there, but with the lack of evidence and clarity in how it's being explained. The best AP feat a Biju Bomb has is destroying and blowing up a bunch of mountains, chapter 570. Let's see. Well, I think, not to second guess you, not to second guess you, but I think the mountain destruction feats would count as DC, destructive capacity. And granted, like, AP and DC are related. I mean, they are distinct things and they have different applications, but also you get AP from DC through, it's like a weird form of conversion. So yeah, you can definitely use this as part of your scaling. But again, like, I would love to see, I know some people have done calcs of this. I haven't. I need to go and look up some more, but you know, I'd love to see somebody, for example, look at the size of these buildings and then get the distance of the buildings and then get the diameter of the explosion and stuff like that, like, and then actually use that in the fight. Like, if Noodles had done that, at least I could have some math to take a look at, and then we can kind of go from there. 571. Oh yeah, no problem. Kakuzu and Holidays, I'm actually glad to hear that you fell asleep, like, as long as you're not frustrated or anything, but, like, getting sleep is good, so I hope that you, like, get a chance to rest up a bit. The best AP feat would be Naruto's tail beast bomb clashing with the 5 Jinchurikis. Yeah, that makes sense. So what we're looking at right here. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. But where does Yugito's become relevant, and then how does that apply to Kakuzu? Is what I'm curious about.
The final and one of the most important factors to Kakuzu's resilience is his Earth Grudge Fear technique that allows him to hide 5 stolen hearts of Shinobi inside of him, forcing his opponents to land not just 1, but 5 fatal blows to Kakuzu, or just be strong enough to one-shot multiple of them like Naruto did. The final section for
Yeah, I don't have that much to say about that. I remember listening to that the first time, and my initial reaction being like, I feel like Jungu is Kakuzu's signature and most like significant ability, his coolest and most unique ability, and to just kind of throw it out there as being like, this is the last thing I want to mention about Kakuzu's durability is he has Jiongu, and then move on. It's like, yeah, I don't know. There's a whole lot about having Jiongu that increases his durability and survivability in a lot of interesting ways. For example, this is something that I tend to forget about, but he can detach his limbs and then reattach them by like sewing them and stitching them back onto himself. So he could potentially get like his arms, legs cut off and stuff like that and still be able to reassemble himself. That's potentially worth talking about. Yes, he does have the 5 stolen hearts of Shinobi inside of him, but, and then this starts to like go into like headcanon, obviously, so like warning about that. But imagine that Kakuzu is going off in a fight against Pain. I don't know if the Pain bodies actually have hearts in their bodies, but let's assume that they do. I think Kakuzu in Holidays, I think you actually brought this up before, and it was a really cool idea, so I wanted to mention it again. That let's say Kakuzu's fighting the Predapath, and he manages to take out the Predapath's heart and incorporate that into himself. So Kakuzu is fighting Pain. Kakuzu, quote-unquote, dies once and loses 1 heart. Then he grabs the Predapath, rips out his heart. Now he's got a heart back. Then Pain like manages to kill him again. Kakuzu jumps up and grabs the Narakapath's heart and gets that heart again. So it's not just like he starts the battle with 5 hearts and he gets like 4 extra lives. That is true. But also, if he can manage to grab some more hearts while he's in the fight, that further extends his life and durability. So actually, Noodles could have boosted his point here by trying to argue that Kakuzu could use the multiple paths, if they have hearts again, to his advantage to try to restore himself. I don't know if he could actually pull that off, but it'd be an interesting thing to consider. And he does this in character during the war, where he's going around like ripping hearts out of people in real time in the middle of the fight. So I don't know. I feel like Kakuzu's pretty cool and Jungkook's pretty fucking cool, and like, why just throw it out there like that, you know? It's just really weird. Anyway, Kakuzu and Holiday says, not what did I miss except Suigetsu or Kakuzu and durability. Yeah, we just went through the rest of the KCM Naruto durability feats, and my conclusion at the end of it was basically like, yeah, Naruto has kind of weirdly low durability when he first gets KCM, but then he figures out his KCM mode and he gets more durable, and he's able to take some pretty significant attacks. But then whether or not he gets hit head on matters, and whether or not he gets like whether or not he's blocking against the attack matters. Several of the Jinchuriki managed to damage him, including Utakata. Utakata's damaging feat is probably the most significant because he does that bubble attack that explodes on his shoulder, and he seems to be in a lot of pain. He's kind of curled over and like whining about it, for lack of a better word. And B has to kind of pull him out of the attack. And then later on, Naruto does get hit by Yugito, but when he gets hit by Yugito, it's part of that combo attack with the other Jinchuriki, and he cries out in pain in response to multiple attacks over the course of that interaction, including Roshi's attack and stuff like that. So to summarize all that, yes, it's probably true that Yugito, like, it's probably fair, if not like literally, yeah, it is literally true that Yugito hurt Naruto with her claw attacks. But that claw attack didn't seem to do any lasting damage. It was part of a chain of attacks, and those other attacks also seemed to hurt Naruto because he cried out in pain. And those also did no lasting damage that we could see. The most significant one is probably Utakata, but even then Naruto recovered from that. So, I mean, this is not like some kind of huge anti-feat for Yugito, because she stands with the other Jinchuriki that were capable of hurting KCM Naruto, and Naruto was capable of blocking attacks from the right Kage. But the most powerful and damaging attacks were the ones that caught Naruto off guard, like the bubble on his shoulder. And at the end of the day, it's just really hard, in my opinion, to bring any of that back to a Kakuzu versus Pain fight, because it's really hard to see like how much damage was done to Naruto by Yugito. It's really hard to pull Yugito's damage feat out of there. Sorry, I'm gonna respond to comments in kind of out of order. 1 second. Spectre, when I say Yugito hurt Naruto, I meant when... Shit, I still have the chapter up. When she smashed into Naruto, coming from above, it's probably like 68 or something, right? Like, before this, I'll show you. When she's in V2 and like she's attacking as part of that combo, and she smacks Naruto in the side of the head over here, right? But I guess like, so he manages to, just to kind of go over it really quickly, he manages to block against Chome's bug bite, and he's defending using his arms in a defensive position. He seems to be hurt by that. Then Yugito smacks him in the side of the head with her claws. He does seem to be hurt by that. He says arg. Then he gets smacked in the back from behind while not defending and says wah. Seems to be hurt by that. He gets smacked up against Killer Bee's hand and he says ung. He seems to be hurt by that. But then after all that, guy saves him and he just gets back up and he's fine. Compare that to when he gets hit by Utakata with that bubble, which I'll just show really quick. Should be right here, right? Or is it in the previous chapter? Thankfully, these fights are pretty short, so it's relatively easy to find stuff. Yeah, the way that he responds to Utakata's bubble is that he gets it on his shoulder, and then he goes arg like this, and then he like falls down, he's like crouching and like hugging himself in recovery from that. So again, yeah, Yugito is a Jinchuriki. She has high level ability, she's capable of hurting him, but she doesn't seem to be the one who hurts him the most, and even if so, like, he sustains multiple attacks from multiple Jinchuriki consistently and cries out in pain consistently, but then appears to have no damage at the end of that. So it's just very difficult to get a clear-cut scaling of that back to like Kakuzu versus Pain, in my opinion. Let's see. Oh yeah, you missed the Minato splinter scene. Yeah, I just brought that up because Naruto sprains his ankle and has to have it splinted when he first like crashes into a wall with KCM, and then Minato also like gets a splinter in his ankle, so it was kind of like a funny parallel there. And we were just sort of talking about, yeah, like right here, right? How that, what we can potentially learn about durability in the series overall from those two things. Plus, who needs durability when you're faster than 99% of the verse? Yeah, exactly. Well, I sometimes like durability includes speed, not in Naruto Powerscaling, but like in like certain video game, like Total War Warhammer. I used to play a lot of that, or in other games where you're talking about like characters' durability, speed, and your ability to avoid attacks winds up, funnily enough, getting calculated as part of that. Kakuzu and Holiday says it's probably Noodles, not me, because it doesn't make any sense. If it doesn't make any sense, guess you know who it is. Their corpses equals not alive equals useless hearts. Oh, no, I'm sorry. What I was saying is that I think you and I at some point were talking about, like, if Kakuzu were getting hearts from people and those hearts give him the ability to have additional chakra natures. Like, what if he got the Predapath's heart and the Predapath gave him the ability to, like, that heart gave him the ability to absorb chakra, and then he got the Human Path's heart, and then that gave him the ability to rip out people's souls. And all of a sudden, like, Kakuzu started going around like Kirby, like hoovering up Keke, not Keke Genkai, but like Hijutsu, Kinjutsu, stuff like that, and basically just becoming like this terrifying monster that had all these like totally OP abilities. I thought it was with you I was talking about that. I apologize if I misremembered that. But yeah, I do. I thought maybe we also talked about the idea that Kakuzu could replenish his hearts in real time over the course of a battle. So again, like, this is entirely contingent on the like Pain's ability to like if the Paths of Pain actually have functional hearts in them. Maybe they don't, so maybe this is like a moot point. But if you're talking about Jiangu overall, like if it was your homework assignment or whatever to give a book report on why you thought Kakuzu was cool, and part of that was you had to explain what Jiangu was and what makes it such an asset in combat, I think it would be worth mentioning that he can, it's not like he just gets 5 hearts and that's it. He can replenish them in the middle of a fight, and he makes that very clear when he's fighting against Kakashi. Like, that's his intention. So, you know, even if Naruto showed up, if he managed to get Kakashi's heart and then turn that around and start using lightning jutsu against Naruto and Yamato and all that, that would be a serious threat. It's worth talking about, I think. Kakuzu Holidays says, doesn't just that simply means the Raikage version 1 over version 2 Jinchuriki and AP? Well, the weird thing about the Raikage is that where I used to have it up here on a panel. I might need to look it up again. One sec. Crash into the tree. Oh yeah, 541. 1 second. So the thing about the Raikage feat is that he never manages to hit Naruto on the side of the head or like on the back, like it's 541. Sorry. Or to hit him like unguarded, like I've spent too much time looking at this today. Yeah, so when Naruto blocks the attack, like his arms are crossed in front of him, and if you compare that to where were we were talking about he gets hit by the V2 Yugito, he blocks. Okay, so like I don't know, I haven't like done a precise scaling calc or anything of how Chome and Yugito compare, or which one of them is supposed to have more chakra or to be like objectively stronger or whatever. Let's just assume that they're relative, and then maybe we can contest that later, right? As long as those two are in some way relative. Here we have Chome coming in with Bug Bite, and Naruto blocks by raising up his arms and deflects the attack. But then Yugito comes and hits him on the side of the head, and then that seems to have a greater effect on him. Compare that to the Raikage. The Raikage smacks him, and again he has his arms crossed in the same defensive position, and he manages to negate the attack. Now I don't know if the Raikage managed to get around his guard and like smack him in the back of the head, he might have a more an effect that's more comparable to what we saw of the of what's going on here. At the end of the day, though, like the Raikage managed to hit him and push him back and not hurt him, and Yugito managed to hit him and hurt him. And so the temptation there, I think, is to say, okay, Yugito did more damage to him, but again, it was unguarded. It was coming from the flank, and he also, even though he cried out with more pain, yes, it affected him more, but then he got up and he was fine and didn't show any signs of lasting damage. So it's tricky. It's like, yes, but, you know. Anyway. The V2 gen, I was thinking like when base Yugito damage KCM 1. Oh, no, I don't think that ever happened. Kakuzu in Holiday says, but it's a dead heart. If it's a dead heart, it won't work. Probably. I think we talked about this before, right? Like, Kakuzu can't, like, resurrect the hearts if the souls are already gone. Yeah, we talked about this a while ago, but whether or not, like, the soul of the character he's absorbing has to be, like, still inside the heart and pull that into himself, something like that. Kakuzu steal only chakra natures, things the pains don't have. He doesn't steal powers. You don't want to incriminate your boy to Sleepy. Okay, maybe I hallucinated this. Maybe this is something that I came up with and I thought it was super cool. I just wanted to make sure I gave credit in case it wasn't my idea or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of... I think it's very clear that Kishimoto was introducing these abilities of Kakuzu at the same time Naruto was also learning how to use nature transformation. And so it was all part of this larger arc about chakra natures and transformations and manipulation and strengths and weaknesses and all that. So I don't think we're supposed to look at that and say that Kakuzu is like Naruto universe Kirby and he can just suck up whatever power he wants and then become that. I don't think so. It's just kind of fun to think about. And more to the point with like regarding responding to Noodle's video, My point, it's a nitpick, I guess, but my point is just like the Jungu is like one of his signature abilities, and there's actually kind of a lot to talk about. Like you could make a video, you know, a good like 10-20 minute video about just the Jungu itself and how cool it is and how many different ways you could use it, and all of the attributes it has and stuff like that. And so this is just like me kind of casually saying, that's kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? Like I wish there had been more detail there. And I've said that about other videos too, like Six, I talked to him about this at some point in his stream, where I was like, I like a lot of the stuff he does, but he made a video about Naruto's like battle IQ, battle intelligence, and it was like a 15-minute video, and it was okay, you know, well made and everything like that. But by the time I got to the end of it, I was just like, oh, okay, that's a good start. What next, right? Like, you brought up like 3 or 4 feats. That's cool. What next? Like, let's go through the whole thing. And so I don't know. I tend to kind of want to do a deep dive on stuff, and I was a little disappointed by that. That's all. But that being said, I can hear my voice starting to get a little scratchy. So maybe I'll take a little break. I think I might call it for today. Feel free to let me know if you have any like last minute thoughts or questions or anything like that. As always, I appreciate everybody who showed up. I appreciate the discussion. I'm glad that you're home, Kakuzu and holidays. I hope you have a chance to rest up and stop by. Spectre, thank you so much for the engagement and the questions and all that. Oh, you're not a fan of Six's videos? That's a shame. Anything in particular that you don't quite resonate with? I know we had somebody new stop by today. Was it Nikhil Sharma? Thank you very much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to cover anything in the future, if there's anything you want to chat about. And Mr. Narrative as well. Not sure if you're still around. It's good to see you. Hope that you, or thank you for the recommendation on solo leveling. I'll try to remember to get around to checking that out. Spectre says, I feel like he doesn't go in depth enough of his topics, of course. Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too. It's like, I respect the hustle, so to speak, that he has as a content creator. Like, he makes a lot of stuff. It's usually pretty well made and well researched and stuff, and you know, but I wind up kind of feeling like like I don't know, Six, if you ever see this is no disrespect or anything like that, but like I wind up feeling like they're kind of like appetizers, right? And I want the full course. It's not that I think the videos are bad, but it's because I like them that I want more, but then I don't get more, and then I get disappointed. But you know, on the other hand, you could argue that like I need an editor, because a script, not an editor in the sense of like somebody to edit my videos for me. What's the right way to put it? Like, my shit is just really long-winded. Yeah, really long-winded, and like goes on forever. And so maybe there's a happy medium between our two styles, something like that. Anyway, no shade or anything, just not really my style. There are certain people that I have tried to get into their content, not naming any names, but like there's a style that I guess is popular of, I don't know how you would describe it, like hold your phone in front of your face and move around as much as possible and shake your phone as much as possible and shout as much as possible, and then put like some manga panels behind you. I don't know what that's called. I guess some people really love it, and that's great for them. I just can't. Like, I get excited sometimes and I see topics that I'm like, oh cool, I'm gonna click on this, I'm gonna learn something, and it's just like somebody screaming like, and shaking their phone violently, and I'm like, I can't. I'm gonna get like car sick or something. Guess I'm old. Whatever. Speaking of videos, are you gonna make more videos? Yeah, I'd love to. I'm actually working on 2 things right now. The first is I want to try making a short just to see what that would be like, about a manga that I read recently. The idea being that I started doing this just for fun, like going to Weeb Central, and then just like picking a random manga like from the list over here and being like, maybe I shouldn't click. I don't know if there's any ecchi stuff in here, but like going through and finding one that I was interested in and being like, okay, this kind of looks interesting. Assassin and Cinderella, okay, let's take a look at that, right? And I would just, maybe this is a bad choice for the stream, but like just kind of picking one and reading through and seeing if I liked it. And then Ashy Dribbles, what the fuck? Anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff here, and so I found one that I really liked, and I'm gonna make a short about it. It should be done this week, and then the next full video that I am working on is I really love Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix, not the Netflix live action, the original, the cartoon one, and I think the first 2 episodes are a really great example of world building, like implicit show don't tell world building, and so I have a script basically done for a video on that. I just need to edit it and stuff like that. After that, I would like to make a video about Conan. I think we talked on stream about her death and about how like its implications on the narrative, and I really find it very compelling, so I want to talk about that. And I have a couple other ideas. I'd like to talk about The Witcher. I'd like to talk about Dark Souls 2 and just like online games criticism in general. So a bunch of random stuff. I'm also open to ideas, so if you have anything you'd like me to cover either on stream or in a full video, let me know. I want to get through this video at some point. I'd also like to do the Swag Kage versus the Swag and 6 versus Kabuki and Afro debate. I know a couple people have mentioned that. That should be a fun time. And yeah, can't think of anything else right now. But so basically, yes, a lot of stuff I want to do. Just gotta get better at managing my time. Kakuzu Holiday says the point of the KCM for me was Kakuzu could withstand without much issue physical damage from V2 like KCM, V2 Jin like KCM Naruto did. Maybe. Have to think about it. Facecam videos, I'm not sure. Just because, so I did some facecam stuff like a long time ago, when I streamed Dark Souls 2, but I'm a little hesitant to do so, mostly because, first of all, like, most of the content creators that I like in the Naruto space don't do it, so maybe I'm just copying or whatever, but I feel like it somehow feels like more comfortable to do that. So I might be open to it under some circumstances, but at the moment I'm kind of like, I like my anonymity, so I have to keep that going, I think. You can read my Pain versus Kakuzu section if you want. I think I need to I need to stop talking because my voice is going, but I'll check it out on the document you sent me. Have you read One Piece or Bleach? I have not. I've been thinking about checking out Bleach because it keeps coming up as like one of the greats, so I'm definitely curious about it. One Piece I probably won't because this is incredibly biased of me, but I just don't like characters with like stretchy arms. It's such a weird specific kind of thing, but something about like stretchy and elastic characters just really bothers me. I don't know why. It's something like happened in my past. I got like traumatized by Gumby or something in a nightmare or something. I don't know, but I just I can't deal with it, unfortunately. Attack on Titan was something I liked. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that at some point too. A lot of interesting stuff that happens over that series. The ending, no spoilers, I was not a fan of, so maybe we could have like an ending discussion stream at some point. It'd be kind of fun to talk about. Dan Dan is also a fun manga, a little odd though. Yeah, I saw the first episode of the show. Loved the soundtrack, like the opening soundtrack. Creepy Nuts is the band or group that does that soundtrack, or the theme. They also did the one for Mashal. I absolutely love them. They're fucking awesome. I did find the scene with the girl, like on the like being attacked by the aliens and all that, to be kind of exploitative and creepy and weird. And so I was kind of turned off by that. I might go back to it, but you know, if it gets better from there, I just like this is my own bias. But I really wanted to get into JoJo, and then I was like just frankly kind of disgusted by the way that the female characters were treated pretty consistently. Like the one character who was introduced who, I don't know, just like was constantly like talking shit to his mom or something, and then like this nurse that just like sacrificed this nurse early on in the season with no remorse. I don't know. It seemed like, with some exceptions, like the female characters really didn't make it out of that good. And I get that that's kind of the point, because it's about like abs and muscles and biceps and masculinity to the max, and like I get it, there's some fun with that, but I don't know, there's parts of it that I just kind of found like really off-putting. And I started to feel a similar vibe from that scene in Dan Da Dan. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. But if it gets better from there, like I'm definitely willing to go back and try it. I liked the style, I liked the visuals a lot. It was just you know, really well composed and really well animated and stuff like that from what I can remember. But yeah, just a little uncomfortable with certain things. Are you making a narrative video about Conan or a scaling video? Probably a narrative video. There's not too much to talk about with her scaling off the top of my head. I mean, I could definitely make a shorter video talking about her fight with Obito, if that's interesting. But more just about everything like that her death means and what it represents as like hope being occluded, like eclipsed by Obito's like darkness and stuff like that. To each their own, but yeah, I've been reading One Piece. This has been coming out weekly. Oh shit, is it still ongoing? Isn't it like 1,200 chapters or something? See, that's the other thing. Like, part of the reason why I don't play a lot of online games is because once I start to get into something, I get really into it, and I feel like if I started reading One Piece and got into it, it's like, oh shit, like now I've committed myself to like 1,000 chapters that would take months and months to get through. I think Swag Kage actually did a video where he like read all of One Piece in like 3 months or something, and made a video about it, and that was fun to listen to. But I don't think I can like put myself through that. Sorry, no disrespect or anything. I just like, it's less about the comic and more about my brain and my like impulsive tendencies towards that sort of thing. Okay, well, with that all being said, I'm gonna take my dog out before it gets too dark, and I'm gonna look forward to seeing you guys again soon, hopefully. Thursday is gonna be another Dark Souls stream. I think I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm not sure if you guys would be interested because it's a little bit more niche, but I want to talk about the soundtrack to Dark Souls 2 because some people have levied some criticism against it that I strongly disagree with, and I want to talk about all the ways in which the sounds, the instruments and the instrumentation and all that reflect the narrative of the characters and like how they help to the world building, to build the world out. So that might either be this coming Thursday or next Thursday. Either way, gaming stream on Thursday. And then next Sunday, open to suggestions. It might be nice to just see if we can start with the video itself and just like power through it and see if we can get through a good chunk of it. But if I can think of any other like specific topics to go over, or if there's anything you want me to cover, let me know. I'm happy to branch off, do a little extra research, and just kind of keep the conversation going. So thank you. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.